whatever
I
country
disagree.
employs
We've grown 115,000 jobs.
You may
since
disagree,
January,
but we have decades.
The numbers
totally
don't
mean
back
thing.
you up. We have 115,000 new jobs since January, Wick.
Great, there were plenty of times where we grew where we had even more jobs when we didn't have tariffs. It's obviously dumb to say that because we got a good payrolls report, because we got some good jobs report, that the tariffs are therefore responsible for those jobs. If you look at actual papers from actual economists who understand what they're saying and do actual multivariable regressions, things like that, guess what? They all say that tariffs reduce overall employment.
What our prescription is to do fight an adversarial power that has so much economic ability all over the world.
What do you think Mexico should do? Because we have free trade with Mexico and we subsidize our farmers, and our farmers are able to outcompete all the Mexican farmers.
Which part am I supposed to be mad about with Jerome Powell?
If Trump fires him because Trump
No,
wants
I understand the question. Which part should I be mad about?
the fact that Trump
I'm not
interfered
mad
with
about
monetary
it.
policy.
I don't care. It honestly doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I think it's within his power. If he wants to do it, he can do it. He doesn't even need to. Honestly, I don't even know that he needs to articulate a reason for doing it.
Great. You would obviously agree that not everything that is within the president's power to do is good, right?
If it's not good, then why would it be within his power? That's
What?
That's an insane.
Okay, buddy. If you want to see more content like this, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing. It really helps with the algorithm. And make sure to check out the Discord and other social links in the description.
Let's get into it. Is the economy going well? Is it bad? Is there a method to Trump's madness? Who knows? Hopefully one of these people do. We can discuss it. Let's talk about it. We'll start with Tyler. What do you think?
It's been pretty rocky for the last few years. It looks like the post-COVID spending, restarting the economy, and a bunch of other factors, some of it being the Biden administration's fault, some of it being the Trump administration's fault, have led to some not so great times. I gotta defer to polling like I always do and say nobody's happy with the economy now. They're slightly happier under Trump, but it's not very much. Something like 5
Thanks,
points
Super for the follow. I appreciate it.
Something needs to give. We need to get some reprieve for high prices and a first priority over immigration, I feel like, would really swing things more in Trump's direction, but it's not good.
All right. Thank you so much. Grid.
Yeah, okay. I think, Trump came in hot. He's been stymied by the existing, powers that be, pillars of whatever you want to call it, the Congress or whatever, however you want to look at it. It's all fine. We can get into that in detail. The one thing is that, as far as the economy goes, he is making good on his campaign promises of, for example, border security and deportations, middle-class tax relief. There's a 10% rate reduction proposed for earners under 150K. That's pending in Congress, obviously, so he can only do so much. But yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, I really can't add a lot to what Tyler said beyond just that. There we go. Roll with it.
Thank you so much. Nonfon.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is not actually that right now. It's not actually that different from the last, 4 years or whatever, where the hard data around the economy appears to be pretty decent. We have the payrolls report was above expectations. The jobless claims that just came out were basically about expectations. But if you look at consumer sentiment, I think that's falling. If you look at sort of the soft data and the vibes, all that seems to be down. And I will say, I think it's rational for people in firms to anticipate worse times incoming because of the things that Trump is doing, like tariffs. And I would also like a clear answer from every conservative here, because I'm very worried about what would happen if Trump fired Jerome Powell. And I want to know, would these people support Trump or support Trump's decision to fire Jerome Powell, for monetary policy reasons?
Thank you so much. And just ignore my cat. He's doing the Elon salute. No judgment. He might have been, reincarnated as somebody. Who knows? Thorn Horn.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the kind of steps that have been taken so far have been to the detriment of the U.S. economy at this point. From kind of top to bottom, on what I've seen, it's not really anything that's conducive towards a roaring great economy, and using tariffs as like a bargaining chip to play with the stock market and stuff, not great. So
thank you so much. And Wick.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've learned in the last couple months about the economy is that there is a crash the economy button. I didn't know it existed, but I do know now. And Trump hit that button as hard as he could. We're seeing the stock market plunge. It's recovered a little bit, but it's still way down. 10-year yields on Treasury bonds are spiking. That's not good, gang. The value of the dollar is plummeting. Also not good, especially not good when combined with the 10-year Treasury bond thing, right? We're seeing mortgage prices. They're up to a little over 7% interest rates now. That's expected to go up. Powell has recently given several speeches and things like that where he says that the Fed is anticipating a spike in interest rates, a slump in job productivity and growth. So, yeah, that's where we're at. And we didn't have to be here. Most of this is coming from, again, Trump's economic policy, which is a combination of incompetent and cruel. But here we are, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, let's open it up. Fight, boys. What do y'all think? Who's at fault?
Right.
What's going on? Go ahead, Tyler.
First off, after Nonfon's opening, I need to know his stance on pineapples on pizza. It's extremely important to this economic discussion as well. I want to go with. We're looking at, like, I just want to, throwing aside the partisan politics for a minute here, what we saw under the first Biden administration was, and again, it was before climate policy. He thought it was good. That's what people voted for at the time. I'm not knocking that in particular. And also the Saudis, the big Democratic talking point because of Jamal Khashoggi was to go after the Saudis. So those early actions isolated one of our big energy imports, and then on top of that, there was a lot of messaging to ban fracking, and then it got rolled back a bit, and the 12-year transition off of fossil fuels, certain regulations put in place that made investment into these oil companies and gas companies fall off pretty hard in 2020 because of the market messaging that was going on there and the acts of the administration out of the first year. So what we saw from that was every $10 the cost of oil went up per barrel, we saw inflation go up like 0.2, 0.3%. So just the cost of a barrel right now being around 55, when it got up to 100, that right there is about a full point of inflation on its own. It's because all this distribution we need because of that oil.
But you do know why the price of oil was up and gas was up,
Several
right?
reasons. That was
One of the reasons was that they were anticipating, right, a booming economy, right? When gas prices go up, it's because it at least this index of it, right? I'm not talking at your pump. But when people are buying the barrels and things, the futures in the barrels, they're anticipating a lot of demand for gas, right? A lot of demand for this energy, trucking, transportation, etc. It's generally, again, it's a little more complicated than this, right? But it's generally a sign of a healthy economy that they're.
I got to call you out on that one. Will.
You got to call me out on that.
Absolutely true.
I got to call you out on that one. That's bullshit. The reason the gas and oil prices went up is because we started offshoring our oil production again. We shut down most of the oil production in the United States, which drove because.
What about Alaska?
Because we drove back in 2003, 4, 5 through basically 2010.
Okay, I'm not talking about 2003, 4, 5. I'm talking about the last 5 years. Let's stick to that.
Wait,
well, hold on. If it's pertinent to overall trend, I don't know. Let's find out.
It is pertinent to the overall trend. The United States drove the price of oil down below $50 a barrel. Actually, this was 2010, 2012, I guess, in that area. We drove it down below the price of $50 a barrel. The entire world was about to lose their minds. They went insane. So as soon as possible, they wrecked that. They literally shut down oil production in the United States to drive the price of oil back up. And that's why this bullshit that you're spewing about futures and
I'm not talking about
that is horseshit.
It was coming out of the biggest recession of recent history too, and that's when the economy was actually starting to activate again, right around that time.
That would be why, yes. And so this idea, right, that one of the indicators of the coming recession, right, is the fact that oil prices are plummeting, because again, investors are anticipating a slowdown in the economy, that there's not going to be as much demand for energy, gas, etc., and going into like trucking, shipping, etc. And it is a red flag, if you will, right? So you can talk about production, and that's fair, but at least during Biden's term, we've seen some of the biggest increases in energy production in my home state of Pennsylvania, for example.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think
overnight. That
Biden
doesn't
did
fix
run
the
on
problem.
clean energy,
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm talking about the last 5 years.
Hold
That's
on,
what
hold
I'm
on.
talking about the last 5 years.
When we were seeing the cost of energy spike, like we see all the time, things spike when we run out of supply. What we do is import. So, you know, when we ran out of eggs, we went and imported a bunch of eggs and drove the cost down 60%. So in this instance, we would send somebody maybe to one of our trade allies that we import energy from, like OPEC, which we did over a dozen times. Tony Blinken went and met with the Saudis and OPEC and was denied every single time because of Biden's year one actions, isolating the Saudis, taking the Houthis off the terror watch list, and stop selling the Saudis weapons, etc., etc. I got a bunch of other things, which ended up biting him in the ass with Israel. But regardless, him isolating our ally, our soft power connection, and our trade ally in the Middle East screwed over our oil prices. And we can see from the Trump administration that is their number one thing, is bringing down the cost of energy and also exporting it. Right now we're in talks with the EU to export the rest of the natural gas that they bring in so they can completely cut off Russian energy imports. And that would also help balance that trade deficit Trump hates so much. So in a way, upgrading our energy and being able to sell to Japan, who also said out loud multiple times that they were seeking energy from the Biden administration and could not even get anyone on the phone. Trump is like, hell yeah, we'll take that deal. Come on in and buy our energy. Shit, we're even going into coal now.
so
It's
I mean,
good for the economy long term.
I don't entirely disagree, but I think this is why Biden sort of walked back a lot of the things that he had said about clean energy. And like, look, he did have, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act and things in the Chips and Science Act that I think invested in clean energy. But he did also approve a lot of fracking. I think he approved like more permits than Trump did. He dipped into the strategic oil reserve to try to bring down oil prices when we needed it, you know, when we needed to do that. And
I mean, that's the leftist popular play, is to dip into the strategic oil reserves. They do it every single time when they need to lower energy cost, rather than
that's
rather
literally
than let
the
us drill
point.
in the Gulf, and rather than let us drill, let companies drill, American companies drill off our own coast in the Gulf of America. They let.
Where
I
is
mean,
that
again,
exactly?
we're drilling more oil under Biden than like any country in the history of ever, right? Like,
I don't believe that was true.
Well,
okay, I mean, you can just look it up. Like, U.S. biggest oil
And
producer.
it's not just
And look it
energy
up.
under Biden. Manufacturing was beginning to see a renaissance, right? Productivity in manufacturing was shooting through the roof. That's, again, it's not yet, right? Because we're anticipating.
Wait, hold
but
on. Hold on.
that's kind of
Hold on,
going
hold on.
down now, right? That a lot of people are
Hold on.
anticipating.
We
it
have
to
literally
drop.
in just the last couple of months, we now have GE, Intel, and most auto suppliers are talking about, or not, either have or are on the path to expanding or opening plants in Ohio, Texas, South Carolina, because of Trump's tariffs, because of the way that things are going, because of the plans that he's made. And those are the jobs that you guys are talking about that weren't here. The manufacturing jobs, they weren't here. They're coming back. If you want
I
that,
don't
that's
think
the Wall Street Journal Industry Index, March 2025. The Chinese are, the rare earth metals that the Chinese have us by the balls over, which is what you guys really should be talking about from a leftist point of view. We're trying to reduce that. The only place in America that we have rare earth metals is outside of Nowheresville, California. And so this all affects our economy. And you guys are talking about fucking irrelevant bullshit? Come on, man. Let's get into it, man. Get dirty. Get into the meat of the argument.
Okay, let's get
So
into the
we
meat.
have-
There was a $300 million recycling plant that recently in my home state was shut down because of Trump's economic policy, specifically the tariffs and his gutting, or Doge's gutting of grants and things to
that's a
clean
great
energy and
point.
these things. We lost a $300 million plant contract, right, which was going to employ thousands of people. Pennsylvania is really getting hit hard by some of these tariffs. And I got to tell you, right, it's not going to be good for the pocketbook of the worker when investors can't really rely
and
on
also,
America
and also
to
look,
know
I mean,
what
we
kind of
have
policies
we
are
have
gonna
surveys from.
Let me let me just ask a question. Now I'm actually going to give it to Nonfon because it's actually because you said this before, I think, on a previous econ panel, Nonfon. You had mentioned that you didn't disagree that, but with the tariffs, you would like hurt one industry and another industry would grow. Like, I might be paraphrasing you correctly. You agreed that could be a possible outcome, right? Is this not a similar situation, Wick, where you mentioned your recycling plant closed, but like me, for example, beef is booming, right? Like, do you disagree that this is a scenario in which, and then after you answer Wick, then we'll go to Nonfon.
No, here's the deal.
Beef's been booming for a lot of other reasons that have been just like culminating up to this at this point, so that's not entirely just like Trump.
That aside, in principle, yes, tariffs can increase jobs in some sectors, but the argument and the data shows that overall tariffs specifically hurt job growth in whatever country.
We've grown 115,000 jobs.
You may
since
disagree,
January,
but we have decades.
The numbers
totally
don't
meaningless
back you
thing.
up. We have 115,000 new jobs since January, Wick.
Grid, the
And how many
numbers
of them are we going to
absolutely
lose
back
because
him
of
up.
these tariffs?
What do you?
These tariffs didn't hit till April. You understand that, right? These tariffs weren't
Okay?
in place in
But
January.
since January, we've had jobs growth.
Grid,
Okay,
your
we don't
causal
know the
inference
jobs
is
numbers.
absolutely
You're saying in the last
horrible.
2
It
weeks
doesn't
the
just
tariffs hit
because.
and we've lost so many jobs in the last 2 weeks. Come on, Wick. Don't be that disingenuous.
Great, there
Don't
were
be that
plenty of times
disingenuous.
where we grew where we had even more jobs when we didn't have tariffs. It's obviously dumb to say that because we got a good payrolls report, because we got some good jobs report, that the tariffs are therefore responsible for those jobs. If you look at actual papers from actual economists who understand what they're saying and do actual multivariable regressions, things like that, guess what? They all say that tariffs reduce overall employment. And we have very good reasons to believe, like theoretically, why that would be the case. And I would also point out that we have surveys from both the Philadelphia Fed and the New York Federal Reserve. Both of them have surveys for manufacturers, and they surveyed them after the Liberation Day tariffs. We got these, reports 2 days ago, and they both expect, all these manufacturers expect their business to slow down in the coming 6 months. They expect new orders to drop because we're tariffing all the goods that they.
I have a question. Hold on. I have a question real quick. So I've heard the complaint that under Biden, I made it myself. So that's who heard. I heard it from. Was that a lot of the jobs were basically the gig economy jobs versus what we're getting under Trump is going to be long-term manufacturing jobs. Do y'all disagree with that idea, or is it are we looking past this? Are we saying, oh no, lost gig jobs and gain better ones? No, you don't agree with that, or what are your thoughts?
I think that I kind of disagree with that in certain aspects to it, just because the Trump administration hadn't really kind of done the soft work to actually implement a transition away from international markets into something that can be manufactured and built inside the United States, and actually did the groundwork to make those tariffs actually viable for making actual American jobs. So at this point, I don't think that that really is showing up. It's just we just tariffed a bunch of shit and we have no other alternate, so it's just fuck the consumer on that.
I appreciate you saying words that don't mean anything, but again...
I appreciate you saying words that don't mean anything either, so yeah, it's really cool.
Are reshoring jobs and expanding plants. Ohio,
yeah, Mexico,
Texas,
and
South
Canada,
Carolina,
it's
and
a
my
pretty
home
good
state of
time.
Tennessee are all seeing either new plants or an expansion of existing plants because we're reshoring those jobs. Now,
So
Intel,
there are 5
GE
U.S. auto plants that have just laid off people due to tariff-related incidences. The auto plants that supply factories in Canada and Mexico, because the way free trade works, right, or the way our trade system works, is we have a lot of plants in America that manufacture the parts for auto plants offshore, right, in Canada and in Mexico in these specific places. But because they have to get the goods from Canada, and they assemble it here, and it goes back to Canada, they're getting hit with tariffs, right? And so they're laying off people because it just doesn't make sense to have such an interconnected logistical system now. So what you're going to see is a lot of plants are going to go and simply only deal with one country now because they don't want to get hit with these tariffs over and back and again. So for every job we're going to grow here, and I'm not saying we're not going to grow 0 jobs here, but for every job we're going to grow here, we're going to lose
actually, the numbers say that you're wrong right out of the
Grid,
gate.
first of all, you
get laid off
Grid.
from one job, you go get another job, right? I mean, that's how that works. It's blue collar.
Oh yeah, it's easy to get another job once you're laid off. What?
Well, hold on. Wait, didn't Biden tell all the oil workers just find another job when he caused all of them?
You think that was good of him to do?
I don't know. Biden's your hero. You tell
do
me.
you think he
Yeah,
he did
he's your hero.
correctly in that instance? I don't.
I mean, yeah, I would say no. I would say no.
Okay,
You
so
the oil
when
workers over.
it's happening now,
Yeah,
do you think it's wise for Trump to tell the people who are losing their jobs now to be like, oh, just learn to code?
He hasn't
I
told
would-
them that.
Yeah.
He didn't
Go
say
ahead.
that.
Well, no,
I see.
Trump is
Look,
saying
Grid-
just fuck off, right, and die.
No,
Right? That's what Trump is
saying
saying, but-
that we are going to bring jobs back and there will be jobs available. And he is
Okay,
doing
so-
that.
Non-Biden,
Grid,
Tyler. Go ahead.
so I mean, number one, this, citing all these payroll reports, rings hollow when you guys were deciding the BLS job numbers were fake for like all of Biden's term. We had a lot of good payroll reports under Biden, and you didn't give Biden any credit. You certainly didn't say it was because of free trade we had all those jobs.
Don't comment my argument like that. I never said they were fake.
Your side did, absolutely. But anyway, even if you specifically didn't,
My side is irrelevant to this argument. The points that I have made are relevant to
Now,
the
hold on,
argument.
was Biden's
well,
economy
I'm about
good,
to
in
I'm
your
about to
opinion?
address the point
Ask
you
him.
made, but
Yeah, just
It's a
ask
great
him. Ask
question
him
to
directly.
ask me. You should have asked me. You should have started there. I feel like I'm teaching a class on debate here. Yeah, you should have started there. You should have started with, what is your position on the Biden economy? I don't think Biden's advisors did a particularly horrible job on the economy. The economy wasn't why we needed to get rid of it.
okay. So hold on. I also just want
The
your
socialist
causal
aspect
your
was the
your-
problem.
your causal inference is so broken. That's the point I'm attacking, is that you don't give Biden any credit for like all the good payroll reports we had under him, but like now
Because
we have
weren't
good pay
talking
we have
about
good
Biden.
we
were
have
talking
good payroll
about
we have
Trump
good
and
payroll
today.
we have good
You keep
payroll
rolling
reports.
it
We
back
have
to
good
Biden, and I'm talking
we
about
have
what
good
the economy
Hey,
is
hold on,
right
hold on,
now.
Chris.
So I understand we
Let
have
Bob-
good
let
payroll
Bob
reports
finish.
now,
Here,
and
Tyler.
but you're saying that like clearly these numbers support that all the tariffs are working because we're growing so many jobs, and it's like again, there are jobs just generally have like an upward trend growth because output generally has an upward trend. Obviously, like every month we're probably going to add a decent amount of jobs regardless of whether or not we have tariffs, unless we fall into an actual recession. But look, again, every like empirical study, and I can cite you the models that would make us believe this as well, say that tariffs typically lead to a net job loss because they protect jobs in some sectors at the cost of jobs in
How
other
long does that
sectors.
take?
If you want, I can walk you through, Grade. I will hold hands with you
How
and
long
walk
does
you
that
through
take typically?
for what.
For the tariffs to have a negative effect on the economy. How long does that take?
I
Pretty sure
mean,
the stock market crashed when it
Yeah.
happened, but that's just like one small part of it.
so
like
some
almost
effects like that are going to be immediate, and then some
Oh, so you're
effects
saying
are going to be
immediate.
longer term. Some
No, I'm
effects
saying,
are
like, that
immediate,
was
so other
one
things are
specific
longer
So
term.
hold on.
Of it.
So hold on. First of all, I can only address one person at a time.
Well, yeah.
That's
So
I thought
Yeah.
that you were just like super cool and could do everyone. Just kidding.
no, yeah.
I'm not an OnlyFans model, bro. I can't do y'all. at once.
Yeah, maybe they got skills they could teach. Maybe they should be giving some seminars. I'm gonna ask a question real quick, and then I want to go to Tyler here because he's been waiting. But I've seen the argument. Yeah, sorry, Grid, and then we'll go back to you, I guess. Don't worry, everybody get in there. Just write down the notes that you can. So that way you can respond to everybody. I was to say I've seen people argue that the dip. What you see is an initial dip whenever you have tariffs, and then the market after a few days or weeks or whatever will adjust back, and that's what they call a correction. Do we disagree with maybe that being an assessment where we have like shocking news, and we shouldn't take the market as it's all falling apart from something shocking, and then after the news goes into effect, it changes. Let's go to Tyler, then I see you raising your hand as well. Wick, go ahead.
All right, so I got a few things because there was a lot of stuff being discussed by people, a lot of it all at once. Overall, it is proven that tariffs in aggregate do hurt jobs. Generally, I've looked up a lot on here. I've tried to see, like, generally they say it's going to hurt the service sector a little bit more. I don't know enough about the deep economics to argue that, but that's just what I've kind of come up with other people saying. The tariffs alone are a tool. If Trump just put these tariffs in place and walked away, absolutely none of the things that Grid is counting as a win would have happened. So you have to look at the larger picture of what he's trying to do with these things. I think personally, I hear you guys saying what Trump's intent is. I think listening to Trump's speeches and Trump's daily comments and the White House press office and shit every single day, this is a united front to decouple from China. And he just said like 2 days ago that we're preparing for war with China, and that's why we're taking such extreme actions to push us and our Western allies away from them in Russia. So that to me is the end goal of all this. But what we're seeing is the tariffs in Taiwan to Taiwan were proposed. 25% tariff to Taiwan for what Trump said was stealing our chip industry. What we saw after that was a $500 billion investment from a deal that Trump had worked out with the Taiwanese chip company to build here. Same thing with Apple. We're going to start tariffing. China. You get an exemption for now because it's impossible for you to transition immediately, but in a few years, that exemption is going to be gone. They're building a plant in Texas for $200 billion with 22,000 jobs, and they're also building a trading facility in Detroit. So if you start looking at this, it's not just the tariffs alone. It's the tariffs bringing people to the table so that we can have these tailored different discussions. And what we're seeing with Canada and Mexico in particular, and now we're seeing it with other nations too, it was just reported, these negotiations, Trump is specifically asking these countries to put up tariffs against China. He's been very vocal about it with Mexico and Canada, asking them to put up barriers against the Chinese infringement, finding a loophole in USMCA. So at the end of the day, this is kind of what the goal actually is to decouple from China.
Okay, wait the grid. Yeah,
sure.
Go ahead.
I want to answer your question first before I forget, AdmiralGibbs, but then I do want to address Tyler's points.
Go ahead.
But to your question about how much should we trust the stock how much of the stock market dip was indicative of a larger problem with the economy, I think people are correct when they say the stock market isn't the economy. But what it is it's an indicator of how people feel the economy is going to be in the future, right? People invest in stocks when they feel that these companies are going to do well. I'm talking in general. I'm not talking shorts and stuff like that, but we're talking general here. Stick with me. And they divest from the stock markets and retreat to things like bonds when they feel that the stock of the economy is going to slow down. It's going to do more poorly. So while we can track when the stock market dropped in the last month and when it started to recover, and every single time was based on statements about the tariffs from people within the administration, specifically Trump, and actions based on that. After Liberation Day, we had a huge decrease, but the market rallied a little bit when it was reported, falsely at first, that Trump was looking to kind of back off these tariffs. And when he backed off a little bit, or reportedly backed off a little bit, we had a little bit of a recovery, and that's been kind of going down since then. So to answer your question, how much should we look to the stock market? I think it's an indicator. It's one of many, but it is something we can't ignore. So does that answer your question? I hope it does. To Tyler, right, specifically, when we talk about decoupling from China, I don't know if that's I'm not necessarily against that as a goal. But can at least you admit that the way he is going about it is probably not ideal?
Too big of a bite of the apple is the way I frame it in my argument. He took too big of a bite of the apple on the world stage, yes.
We can understand how perhaps on occasion a tariff for national security purposes on steel or on electric vehicles or on various other industries, perhaps. But that's not what he did. He tariffed literally everyone in a way that was obviously ill thought out, and then he kept playing footsie with it. Will I do it? Will I not? And this has created gross instability within the market, which is going to hurt everyone. People aren't investing anymore, right? People aren't going to start businesses anymore. And I'm not talking about people who can get exemptions like Apple, right, or Microsoft or all these other places. I'm talking about mom and pops who don't have the connection, right, that a big corporation would. Because another, and this is just supposition, I don't know it for a fact, but my hypothesis here is another reason Trump has been doing the tariffs is so that he can act as a kingmaker and pick winners and losers among corporations. And if a corporation donates to him or his buddies, they'll get an exemption. And if they don't, well, you're out of luck, buddy.
That's really,
and I find that un-American.
Well, that's really interesting, actually, Wick. This may have been a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm willing to dive down for a second. So, have y'all seen the Autopilot app?
No.
Autopilot app? No.
I've been playing with it quite a bit recently, and Dan Crenshaw and Nancy Pelosi. Thank y'all. Y'all have made me a fuck ton of money. I gotta say, appreciate it. But the app tracks Congress people's
I
stock
have heard of
trade.
that. I didn't know it was
Yeah.
called Autopilot, but I have heard of that app.
It's
yes.
really cool, and you can put like a certain amount of money in there, and it'll it'll ratio out the percentage to what like they invest in what based off like how big you are. So if you put like $1,000 in there and they invest $1 million, it'll like basically do what it can to match that like per like whatever the word ratio is to it, and it's pretty interesting. So like I know a lot of people say they want money out of politics entirely. What do you like? Do you have a problem with like Trump being a kingmaker if that knowledge is publicly available and we can all benefit from it?
Here, let's look at
Because it doesn't. Well, I guess just to finish that thought, because it doesn't seem like it necessarily is like insider trading if anybody can do it. Like if I at the same time, right? Like because it's automatically tracking it. If I have an AI that can track everybody's moves, and all of a sudden all the senators are making a move towards one thing, and that info is publicly available, is that insider trading?
I think it is, and I'll tell you why. I think that, well, not specifically the instance you mentioned, but I think that the instance where Trump rolled back the tariffs initially, causing the market recovery, at least to an extent, there was a bit of a rally. We saw some very interesting statements or some interesting bets being made, investments in the stock market, right? We saw people put up bets, basically, that the market would recover within 24 hours. They're very high-risk bets, and they did it moments before the Trump rolled back his tariffs, or at least announced he was going to kind of be a little bit less harsh with those tariffs. He upped it against China, but that's neither here nor there. Earlier in the day, he had texted, now is a good day to invest, right? But that was very vague, very unclear. I would not be shocked, and again, we don't know this, there'll have to be an investigation, and there should be an investigation, but I would not be shocked that this was a form of market manipulation done by the president in order to make the people in his inner circle very, very rich. Because these aren't bets that someone normally would make. I think there's some evidence to suggest that there is some insider trading going on, and I think that should be prosecuted. Do I think it will? No, but I do think it is.
So you're saying abnormal bets are your backing for this fishing expedition, but okay, real quick. So doing personal favors for your buddies, under Biden there was an EV tax cut put out that gave you $5,000 extra off if you bought your EV from a union instead of just a normal dealer. The unions being one of the largest donators, a giant special interest group for the Democratic Party. Not only that, Biden was putting tariffs 100% on China, but other countries as well, on their EVs to make sure we were only selling U.S.-based EVs, upping the sales of U.S.-based EVs and then giving people a $5,000 extra cutout if they bought from a union. That is that deal making you're alleging Trump is doing actually in policy, where their special interest got a particular handout that nobody else had access to. And I heard it was a good thing. So,
and
I mean,
top
look,
of
every
that, the EVs in America are like absolute crap compared to a lot of other competition throughout the world. Just
China's
a side note,
fucking
but
cool. I've been watching videos.
So,
yeah.
Again, I'm not someone who will sit here and say everything that Biden did was correct and right and perfectly righteous, and he was an angel. What I am saying,
you specifically said prosecution.
For
And
again, for
I would
insider
honestly
trading.
say there's actual proof of collusion. That's what it is. What we call is collusion. When you go to somebody and say, "Hey, back me, and I'm going to give you a cut from the government." That's
The unions did not
I
back
mean, look,
Biden.
every politician is probably going to
In 2020
engage.
they did.
prosecute Biden because he's mentally incompetent.
True,
Right? You
but
can't prosecute the guy.
look, every
He's
politician.
competent enough to apparently do these backroom deals, but not competent enough for you to.
Well,
actually
judge
work
found
with.
him incompetent.
Schrodinger's
Are you
Biden
arguing that?
here, but
This
Are
is
you arguing that?
pre-2020. That
Are
was
you arguing
years
that a
later.
judge found him incompetent.
are you
It was,
talking about
it was
the
her.
court?
It was her. He's not a judge, the prosecutor.
Not a judge.
Oh, as a
Yeah.
prosecutor. Oh,
But look,
I'm sorry.
every
It was prosecutorial
illegal authority found
discretion.
him. You know.
But again, this is all deflection, and this is going to happen again and again and
deflection.
again during this
You
conversation.
brought
just
it
real
up.
quick,
I'm gonna
like
bring up- I'm gonna bring up Trump and
every
something Trump has
politician,
done. Hold on, if I may
every-
finish, I'm going to bring up Trump and something Trump has done that I think is wrong, and they're going to be what about? And I want you to put a counter on the screen. Whenever I bring up something Trump does wrong, just wait for the what about.
You didn't say wrong.
Take a drink.
You're
right? We'll take a
speculating
drink,
something
or
was
what
done
about
wrong.
comes
There's
comes
nothing
along.
he did wrong.
You're a joke.
There's nothing he did wrong. You flat out said that there's nothing he did wrong. You're thinking based on your guess that there's something wrong. You're saying there should be an investigation. So there's nothing Trump did wrong. You want an investigation and prosecution.
I'm sorry, Biden, not Biden. You got
proof that Biden did something that's what you're alleging Trump is doing, and you're like, no big deal, no investigation.
Do you think these are similar?
Look, hold on. Every politician.
No, I think it's worse. I think Biden's is worse. He didn't give a fuck.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Nonfon.
Yeah.
Again, making a policy position for an American industry is much different.
What's
than
the paper that found the steel tariffs
down the street,
were more likely to be
hey, I'm about
exemptions
to do a thing. You better
for
like Republican donors.
The stock market.
Prove it.
Who the authors? Who the authors?
You're making shit up. You're shadow boxing.
I'm not making shit up.
Yes, you
I'm saying that there should be as other politics.
Show me proof.
Hold on, let him answer.
Alleged, right? And I'm being careful with my words here. The alleged insider trading that I think that Trump might be guilty of. I think there should be an investigation, and it's surprising that you don't.
I don't, because there's no proof to start the investigation. That's called a fishing expedition.
I actually
that's
made
not
money
the
on
standards
it.
for opening an investigation is not that high.
Go
But,
ahead, Nonfon.
yeah, look, I'm sure every politician is going to engage in type of quid pro quos to like some extent, and I to be honest, I'm not sure the legality of, for example, a union supporting Biden because Biden says they're going to do a pro-union policy by giving tax credits to union businesses. I don't know the legality of that, but I do know insider trading is for the most part illegal, and I think it's fair to ask for an investigation. And I also want to reply to Tyler's point about the decoupling from China,
let me ask you a question, Nonfon.
Sure.
Before you move on, do you think that's? I mean, this is once again a little bit of a little rabbit hole, but for funsies, do you see any fundamental difference between that and saying Biden going, "Hey, vote me in, the checks will go out tomorrow"? Do you see any fundamental difference between the two of him saying, "Hey, to the union, you're going to get a cut"?
I see. I mean, there's a little bit of difference in that, like, giving unions money is like one specific like special interest that he's giving money to, and the rest is just like he thinks this is going to be good for America as a whole, or whatever. The stimulus checks. I would say, I mean, the latter is probably less corrupt and probably better, right? But I mean,
sure. I'm just curious. But you go
look.
on.
I believe like the term lobbyist, I believe, actually originates from people who would go into Congress as lobby when they were debating the tariff schedule, and they would all lobby for tariffs on their specific goods, and they would lobby to not have their competitors be tariffed or whatever. They were or their inputs to be tariffed and all that. And look, we have a paper. I think there's a paper. I wish I knew the authors of it off the top of my head. That literally found that like steel firms or manufacturers who donated to Republicans were more likely to get exemptions from the steel tariff. So I mean, I do think that obviously tariffs like give Trump the ability to be kingmaker and do these quid pro quos or whatever. And just to go back to the decoupling from China, I mean, I think Wick is correct in that this is absolutely not the way you should be doing it, even if this is Trump's goal, which, again, I'm not convinced that he has a solid plan behind everything because his advisors all contradict each other.
There's a lot of post hoc rationalization of his plan so that anything that happens, that was a brilliant plan all along, right? But anyway.
But look, if you want to decouple from China, there are definitely a lot of goods that I would want to decouple from China. And I would say, one, you shouldn't be tariffing everything from China because the more you tariff, the more you're going to lead to what's called exchange rate appreciation, which basically makes the dollar more expensive, and that basically negates some of the effect of the tariff because it allows our currency to buy more foreign currency, which means the imports are cheaper. That's not happening right now because Trump's policies are also causing a fuck ton of uncertainty. So all these foreign investors are dumping their dollars. That's why we saw bonds going up. That's why we saw the dollar falling. That's why we saw stocks falling. And we know, we have studies. We have, studies from the IMF and the World Bank and the OECD, and also a bunch of, papers from Trump's first term that show uncertainty reduces business investment in aggregate.
IMF that literally depresses other nations' currencies so that ours is better.
So there are reasons to do that.
Nations.
That's not true. The reason the IMF, to an extent, does that, I'm sure the IMF has in the past said a country should devalue its currency in world markets.
So that's not true, and in the next breath you say, to an extent, that's true.
So it's not true. It's not true that the IMF,
the world's reserve currency, the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve.
Wait, real quick. Can I? It's a
I'm a non-interventionalist. I'm not a globalist.
Cringe. But look, I mean, to the extent that the IMF tells countries to devalue their currency in world markets, it's because that helps their
Anytime
exports,
you
and
wanna
they believe.
a debate interventionist versus non-interventionist, I am down.
No,
So the
yeah,
IMF
Powell-
basically,
we'll figure
again, the
that out.
IMF
We will
exists
set
to
up
bail out
something next
countries.
week for that, but
Yeah.
I'll contact you. But anyway, go ahead, Nonfon.
Yeah, so
the-
Actually, I'm
the
probably
IMF
in China,
exists-
by the way, so I'm kind of shooting myself in my phone foot, but you know.
The IMF exists to basically bail out countries that are in crises, and to the extent that they tell countries to devalue their currency in world markets, it's because they believe that doing so will help their exports, which will in turn stabilize their economy. There are genuine good reasons to do that, and it does, as Wick says, like help our own dollar as well, and helps us buy, imports from their country, and that's probably good for us as well. But
Yeah, I just. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I was gonna give it the grid because I know I told him he was next, but
Yeah, no, it's cool. So a couple of things right out of the gate. First of all, I actually made money on those dips too. And I don't know Trump, and he's never given me a fucking stock tip. I wish the bastard would, but he won't take my calls because he's a fucking president. Should I be part of this investigation, Wick?
No.
Well, just to add to their point, I mean, I'm gonna play a little bit of help here. Modi 201. I don't know if y'all know him. Not the sharpest economic tool in the shed, if you know what I mean. And he has made a bunch of money since the dip. So if Modi can make money doing it,
Okay, we're not talking about. I made a 20% return on my investment. I'm not talking about that kind of money.
20% ROI? Hell yeah!
Fuck yeah, dude.
I'm talking about people who turned $10 into $1 million. We are talking order of magnitude more return on investment than anything you have made. So no, I don't think that you should. Yes, I am certain that you didn't turn $10 that you put into the stock market into $1 million over that period of time. I am certain
an
that that's the
example of
case.
that?
And I will
Just
bet
$100.
Again, we don't know who made these bets.
I love hyperbole, but I did in fact turn a few small investments into a bunch of money buying those dips. Now, unfortunately, they keep retracing, which means I go up and then it comes back down. It's an interesting thing. I don't mind when I put in $3,000 and it turns into $50,000 overnight. I like that. But when I lose even $1,000 when it backtraces, even $1,000, I fucking hate it. Just can't stand it. So I tend to just pull money in and out. But nobody. I don't think that you can identify a single trade that did that, and I challenge you to right now.
Well, that's what the
You
investigation
just made a very
is for,
bold
we
statement,
have,
and I challenge you to back
again,
it
if
up.
you listened to me earlier,
You literally
I
said
stated that there were
people
several
put $10
big,
in with Trump
big.
whispering
Yes,
in
I'm
their
talking
ear,
about
and they
that
made $1 million.
levels of
So let's
investment,
see
but
that.
you won't let me
Let's see
finish because you just want to keep talking, right? And I'm about to
I think you're
explain
both
to you
bullshit.
these
That's fine.
levels of investment. And you can call it bullshit if you want, but we don't know who did it, but we know that there were several orders placed for very high risk bets that did, again, about $10 to $1 million in scope and scale. People made billions on these specific bets, and it's a very specific type of bet. And the timing, if you go back and look at it, was right before.
This is all very interesting, but you're not. So the thing about this is it requires specifics. I put money.
I mean, I can
Tesla,
give you
Tesla hit rock fucking bottom. I told people to buy it $115. It went up to $600 a share. I love that shit. Okay. I could have told you that too. I don't like you enough. So, there's
I don't
there's
need
a
your
lot of
speculative
different
studies.
things. There's a lot of different ways to phrase this out. And people, you're saying that what you're basically saying is a stock went from $100 a share to a penny, and somebody bought $50 of it, and they made $50 million or some shit like that.
No,
Well, Grid, we have
not what
the-
happened and not what I'm talking about.
Zero to hero. That's what I'm picking up.
To be
I'm
clear, we
talking
have
about
a video
specific
of.
type of bet that isn't just buying a stock.
You have a video?
Placing a bet in the market that
Nonfon,
is
you have a
only good
video?
for 24
Yeah,
hours.
look.
So
See
if
the
something
video.
doesn't
Watch the
happen
video.
within this specific period of time,
video.
it is null and void.
I
Right?
demand
We're not
the
talking
video.
about a
I must
stock
have
investment in a
satisfaction on this
specific
issue.
stock.
I can send
You
it in the group
understand
chat, but
that. Maybe you just don't know about
Okay,
investment enough.
there's a video of Trump standing in the Oval
Which is-
Office, specifically pointing at two people and saying, "This guy made $2.5 billion today, and this guy made $900 million today." Like the day after he, announced the 90-day pause on tariffs. So like,
I wouldn't mind seeing that video, but I'll tell you what video I want to see is the $10 to $1 million. Not because I'm saying, and I'm not saying it because I want a source. I'm saying it because I want to start tracking their stock moves because clearly they know more than I do. And
I can't tell you what video I want to see, but it involves Wick.
Oh baby. Wick will probably give it to you.
You have to pay me a lot more than you're willing to see any kind of those.
Yeah, he's not Destiny. You know what I'm saying? All right, moving on here. Yeah, all right. So, insider trading. Is it insider trading? Is it not? I guess that's really up for the air. I mean, moving on. Let's talk about some other things. Do we think
we have an organization that covers that? Well, the SEC. They'll figure that shit out.
I'm sure.
Are they getting defunded?
I mean, most of the government organizations are getting defunded to some degree. Okay. I mean, I don't think they're singled out if that's your like point.
No, they aren't singled out. It's across the board for federal government.
And
but they're the people that are supposed to be investigating this stuff. So them having less funding means that there's less actual authority to kind of prosecute on it.
Well, no, is it not their DEI programs that are being defunded and not the actual operational organization?
I can tell you.
There are plenty of agencies.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't care about the SEC. Moving on. So what we're sitting here talking.
You know what I do?
Nobody wants to sit here and talk about the SEC unless it's actually like and who's funding DEI. Well, that's not what we're here to talk about today. That shit's boring. Here's what we're going to talk about now. I mean, unless y'all have an economic tie to it, then we can go into it. But I don't want to hear about funding one thing or another. That's another day's topic. Let's talk about other things. I've seen people argue that this is kind of a paying now or paying later situation. With stuff like production and whatnot. We have examples of. Eggs being higher or lower. I heard yesterday bananas are up 20%, so I looked that up, and that's about 2 cents. So they're up from 26 cents to 28 cents or whatever is what it looked like I saw the increase was. And people are saying that this is going to hurt the average consumer too much. I've heard many on the right say that the average consumer understands a short-term price increase for long-term gain. And that seems to be the Trump argument. Do we think this is something that's actually happening, or do we think no? Or is it like Thorn said earlier, where he didn't build the soft power and he's immediately going to the hard power and it's going to just crush us and we're not going to be able to build that? What are our thoughts? Let's go ahead.
No, there's a lot of narratives that came up before the tariffs, like the reciprocal tariffs. They were saying if everyone just went down to zero on us and we didn't have to do these, it would be easier. That was shit that was said before the tariffs. This quote from Lutnick was not said before the tariffs, so I would put this up more for Wick's post hoc rationalization. But what Lutnick said, it was a mini forced controlled demolition of the economy, essentially. And it's a market correction to get us on the track that he and Trump both agree on is better in the long term. And Trump said in the State of the Union there's going to be some suffering ahead. So I would say in that aspect, they're aware of what they're doing to that degree, but it is somewhat of a post hoc rationalization saying we're forcing a recession right now. A mini recession's coming, and we're going to do it in order to make the market bounce back better in the long run.
I mean, look, this is literally, broken window fallacy. Like, we're going to crash the economy because growth is better afterwards. Like, in the timeline where you don't break the window, you don't have to rebuild the window, and the money that would have been spent on the money that is spent on rebuilding the window goes to other, use cases. And look, we just don't have any good evidence that tariffs are good for long-term gains. Like, we can look at the study that the IMF has. Tariffs over 50 years still reduced employment, they reduced output, they reduced all these things,
in place
and look
over and over and over again, and they do.
Yeah, and they were bad. We have studies on them, and they're bad, Grid. And we have models to tell you why they're bad. We have studies from Spain that say that Spain had tariffs for 20 years, and they were bad.
Yes,
and look, also,
tariffs, okay, you're arguing tariffs as they are. Tariffs are essentially a tax or a sanction in a certain way. Yes, if you tax things more, you're going to get less of them. If you tax more income, you're going to get less people wanting to go out and get income as well. If you tax more carbon, you're going to have less carbon emissions. That's the idea of a tax. And yes, so if we slap this tax on people, we're going to get less of that thing. Absolutely. But like across the board, I am for taxing more for good reason. And making sure that our climate policy is here too, our worker conditions are met, and all these things are good enough reasons to at least bring some of this manufacturing back. Maybe not all of it. Maybe not fucking all 12% of what we export overseas or whatever. Maybe 5% of it. But if we can get more companies, more people working under these better conditions that we approved as our law, that's better in general for the planet, isn't it?
So
I mean,
think
I think there's evidence that free trade is actually good for the environment. But look, like some taxes are better than others. Like obviously,
Well, hold on.
I'm in favor of. Hold on,
Aren't you a Keynesian economist?
me, I would say I'm probably between new Keynesian and post Keynesian. I probably have some post Keynesian
Would
beliefs.
cutting
But
taxes be better for the economy or for the environment? Too?
All right. Why don't we
It
explain to
depends.
the
I
audience,
mean-
in case there's anybody? I know not everybody in my audience for sure is going to know what those words mean. Why don't you tell them what Keynesian is as an economic style? Somebody.
Let the economists do it.
Oh yeah, we got
Knows
two
about-
people here with economy people.
I don't know. Look, I would say like Keynesians generally just going to be more in favor of government intervention during downturns. Are going to be in favor of like counter cyclical stimulus. So if we're experiencing a downturn, basically we should to an extent bail people out because that prevents the paradox of thrift, as I think it's Keynes called it. And I mean, I think another big part of Keynesianism is.
I'll let you finish. Hold on. I'm going to let it finish. Well, hold on. I want somebody. Okay, y'all can define it, but I also want y'all to tell the other two competing schools of thought, right? Too. Yeah, that there is. So that y'all, I think there might be more, but the two main ones, so they understand. And let's keep it brief here.
Austrian is not a main school of thought.
Yeah.
Not just throwing that out there.
I mean, basically, I think the big thing, the relevant thing is kind of like the business cycle. So, like, Keynesians believe in the Keynesian business cycle, and it seems like monetarist and
I trust a communist just as much as my checkbook.
true.
Sure.
Monetarist and Austrians.
Austrian school of thought, real quick, somebody.
Austrians believe in the
it
Austrian
emphasizes
business cycle
individual
theory.
action, free markets, and the role of
Thank you.
entrepreneurship in
Absolutely.
driving economic
Market.
progress, often critical. Of them.
Fantastic. Wick got the.
I read it off of Google.
Thank you. I know. I was hoping somebody would do that.
Pisco is going to
There
yell at
you
you, boy.
go.
Oh
He's
yeah.
gonna
Yell
yell
at
at you.
me. But as I said, I'm not an economist, and I'm not familiar with all the schools of economy. But we can
Sure.
talk about government intervention versus non-intervention, and we can talk about the specific interventions that tariffs are. Right? You said you were a non-interventionalist, so obviously you're against tariffs, correct? Grid?
I am there, but at this point, we kind of have to use them because they're being used
So
against
you're
us.
not a non-interventionalist.
Actually, I'm as Tyler found out to his much to his chagrin, I'm very much a non-interventionist. However, the fact is that we have no choice at this moment except to deal with things as they are until we can totally withdraw. So
No choice.
I'm personally.
Why don't we have a choice on
Well,
that
actually,
again?
Wick,
I
that's interesting.
support-
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do you
tariffs.
think it's so bad that
I love that.
Oh
he's
no!
calling-
My internet!
Well, hold on. Let him finish this. I think he's bringing up
He's
a
still
good
here.
point. Hold on. I think Wick's bringing up a
Wick
good.
froze. Wick
Oh,
froze.
he's frozen now. Yep.
Oh, he'll be
Damn.
back. Well, I think this is an interesting point that I'll ask that Wick brings up that is kind of interrupted on you. You're saying you have to deal with it as it lies, right? Like as it is. To play the ball as it lies. If not, from
Yes,
happy
it was a
no
golf
more.
analogy. I got
Yeah,
it.
right. Yeah. So if y'all didn't know that, we got some people in the audience that are of all age groups. If you do that, right? Like you could say that. I feel like people don't want to admit that that's an actual.
Like
You're back,
action.
Wick. Like an actual strategy, like that. You have to play, even though you may agree with one school of thought. You're like, well, since we can't do my ideal form, well, let's do a play it as it lies situation. And, like deal with it. That's kind of what you're advocating, right, Grid?
Yeah,
Is-
yeah. I'm obviously. I don't believe in tariffs. I don't believe I believe in free trade. I believe in the least possible amount of government intervention. However, at this moment, that's where we're at, and so therefore,
Well, I mean-
we have to play the ball as it lies. I would rather not have any tariffs. I would rather us not send anything or buy anything from China at all until they reduce their tariffs. Unfortunately, our economies are too tied up. So reciprocal tariffs do make sense in that case.
To an
So
extent,
you
like
tax
we're
me, I'm gonna
all
tax you
we're
too.
all
We're gonna do that.
playing the ball where it is or whatever. Like I have my own ideas of what like a perfect tax policy looks like, and that is not the income tax system that we have now. But like I'm still not in favor of tariffs, even though I do support government intervention sometimes, because like we just observed that tariffs are like a super bad, regressive, distortionary tax that just don't really raise that much revenue. Like a 5% VAT would raise the same amount of revenue as these tariffs, and it's not nearly as distortionary. It doesn't affect business investment as much. And
Same with the estate tax. I agree with everything you're saying about the estate tax as well. Let's get rid of
If
that.
we-
Sorry, estate
If
tax.
we
I mean-
want
Yeah,
to bring
it's-
back,
Estate.
Estate tax, the death tax.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
estate
the
tax.
death
I mean,
tax?
I think there's reasons to
I'm just
believe
throwing a
inherit.
hypothetical at him.
I think there's reasons to believe inherited wealth is kind of bad. I don't think the estate tax is a particularly efficient tax because it basically is a just one-time wealth tax
Sure.
at time of death or whatever. But there are reasons
We make
inherited wealth is
very
probably
little
bad.
off of it.
So
It's
I have mixed feelings on the estate tax,
for
but I'm
dying,
not
guys.
here
Tax
to.
for dying.
I'm not here to talk about the estate tax because that's what's happening to our economy right now. We're not like debating whether or not we should repeal the state tax, right? We're talking about the tariffs. Let's be real here. Like when we talk about government intervention, these tariffs, the Liberation Day tariffs, and correct me if anyone disagrees, but outside of in the last 100 years, these are the largest tariffs we have seen in America go out in the
From
last
America.
100 years.
From America, not in
five
America.
different
Yeah,
tariff
that's
policies. Absolutely.
Yes. So again, if you're a non-interventionalist,
You're no. Stop.
you
stop,
have
stop.
to
Stop,
be
stop, stop,
at
stop,
least
stop, stop,
somewhat.
stop,
Like you can't even.
stop,
You don't
stop,
even know what I'm
stop.
about
That
to
is
say.
incorrect, and that is incorrect, and this is why. Because Japan taxed American vehicles 80% or higher, up to 120%, and we gave them breaks to bring their cars in. So yes,
We
we were
put
tariffed. There were
tariffs
massive
on
tariffs against the
every-
United States.
Almost every
Massive
single,
tariffs
not
against
every, but almost every single
Yeah, but they
country
gave us
in the
anime.
world.
Yeah, they
right?
did give us anime.
Yeah,
We
look,
paid
I mean,
for it though.
you-
We did. It wasn't free.
It's free. It's free.
But again, I can't control
I'm not cool
Japan's
enough to get it
policies
free,
here,
guys.
but we
Sorry.
can't talk about whether we support Trump's policies and the tariffs. And again, as someone who's a
No, we're
non-intervention,
talking
I'll
about
just
economists. We're
be
not
real with
talking
you.
about- dude,
I don't
Rick,
believe
we're
you when you
trying
say
to-
you're a
we're trying to
non-interventionist.
take
Because a
this into the
non-interventionist
bullshit
would
range.
not be okay with this massive amounts, a nuclear bomb of intervention. We're not just talking about one tariff here, one tariff there. We're not just talking about a little bit of injection in the economy. We're talking about the biggest tariff in the last 100 years.
Yeah, fuck
yeah, look,
yes.
Japan
Let's get it.
tariffs us at an average
Yeah,
of
number
1.64%.
Hell,
Like
burn
that's
the
a like
system
that's
down.
nothing.
Make the Chinese so mad that they never send us another plastic pile of dog shit. I would love that. Fuck yes.
Hold on.
Wait,
We're
you-
talking-
I don't
are
want
we
a plastic
asking-
Wait, would you be in
pile
favor?
of dogs.
You would
That's
wait,
weird.
Grid, would you be in favor of what Kevin Lear? So I don't think you're saying this like across the board blanket tariff. You sound like you want more targeted tariffs, Grid. Like to say they're bucking us with 120% on a car, then we'd hit them with something bad. Would you be in favor of what Kevin Leary has proposed with 400% tariffs to China, and reduce some other places? Would you like something like that, Grid?
I mean, I see the point. I mean, I've actually heard a half of his deal, so I'm not super familiar with it, but I'm sure that I would agree with most of what he says.
Okay. Can I just ask this? Who thinks we're winning the trade war with China right now? Raise your hand.
Winning?
Yes.
Right here. Absolutely 100% across the board.
Holy shit. You guys are crazy.
Take a look at the
I
fucking
think
stock
it's
market.
crazy
Dude.
what we're
They,
getting
You're
across from
not
them.
they
winning.
took a
Look at that
much
stock
bigger
market,
dip than
I
we
mean-
did. Yes.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
like
no, they
even
took
the
a
Chinese.
20%.
Even the Chinese people are coming out said they today that they're like borderline at zero.
They're having protests. Protests in the streets right now against Xi Jinping.
I don't think you understand.
Rick,
China
you didn't know
can. Hold on. I don't think you understand.
Oh,
Do you think? Hold on. Do you think protests in China are going to do shit?
No, but the fact that they can get
Okay.
they can
China
disappear-
is a
And
different
look, a lot of
type-
the-
deal that is?
Not
Well,
China
they
is a
can
different type
disappear
of
for doing
government.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hold on.
It is
I
subject to
think-
different
Hold
incentives,
on,
and it's
let me get-
subject to. If you
Okay,
guys
I
let
wanna
me
jump
finish,
in here.
they're subject to different pressures,
I'm gonna-
and they are able to withstand pain far greater than our system of government is. We will
No, they're not.
break before
hold on.
they
That
do.
is-
No.
So hold on. Before we make this, let me ask
They
you.
have a
Let me ask you a
higher
question.
savings.
Do you think that if you? So we all agree. If everybody
His name
you
is the
protest in
Thorn
China,
Horn
that's not going
sound
to
soul.
change shit.
I don't
in
think
Chinese
it sounds
government.
soul. I
They're
don't
just
think
gonna disappear
he
you,
streams.
or at best for a lot of those cases, right? So wouldn't that be indicative that if they're out there protesting in mass, things are that bad that they're willing to risk being disappeared and like sent somewhere? Like, wouldn't that be indicative of that to an extent?
They have a lot of different types of protests and styles of protests. If you're protesting like Hong Kong, yes, that's a disappear you protest. But when we're talking about like a lot of times in China,
Protesting
they
against
have
the government period gets you disappeared.
allowed protest. It's just different. It's just different. They're not protesting against the government
Dude,
of China, at least.
Have you been to
I
China?
understand. No, but I studied
Well,
Mandarin
I'm
Chinese,
married to a
and I
Chinese
was
woman.
in
You
the
need to
Defense
ask her.
Language Institute, where I was a cryptolinguist for the military, where my target language was Mandarin Chinese, and so I know a little bit about how their government works. Not an expert by any means, but I think I know more than the layman does. Let's say that.
Could you
And
order
look, a lot of
Chinese food
the
in the language?
I think you're shrouded by a sense of idiocy.
Of course they could. Go
Can
ahead.
you
Look, a
order
lot of- a
Chinese
lot of-
food here in that language? Do you do that?
Not well. This was 10 years ago. I've lost a lot of my language capabilities.
Oh, that's not fun.
It sucks.
It's a pretty.
Listen, it seems like it's a lot harder for the U.S. to remove China from its supply chains than it is for China to move the U.S. from its supply
And
chains.
China's already making deals with the EU. They're already
Exactly.
getting closer to Japan. They're already getting closer to South Korea.
wrong.
What
a
we're
lot
doing-
of a
what
lot of
we're
things
doing is
China
isolating ourselves.
imports are like
Isolating
soybeans,
ourselves.
which they can pretty easily
You're-
buy from
you are
Brazil.
so wrong. This is propaganda, dude. You do not understand.
I'm
not
just telling you
Literally,
facts.
the government
Okay.
is about
Telling you
to
facts.
invoke martial law and start killing their citizens, and you don't seem to understand the
Wait,
mass.
Which
effect
Chinese
that is
citizen has
going
been
on.
killed due to these tariffs?
They're having
sorry?
protests in the streets.
To the
Those people-
protests on these tariffs.
They will
Wait,
kill
how
the
many
protesters
Chinese
on the
citizens have been
They're
killed?
going to
None
kill the
yet, we don't
factory
know.
worker who literally stands up and says, "I want to work, man," and you got to work with the U.S. You got to, and they're going to kill that guy. It's not like here, Wick. They don't have leftists there like you.
Okay,
No.
so real quick, hold on.
No,
So
they
far,
have-
it seems
they
like
have
China's been the
PRC
one.
Let me
Dick suckers
jump
like
in.
you.
Let me jump in real quick and just kind of
Go
give
ahead.
you a comparison of the
Go ahead,
economy. So I'm pretty sure about 20% of the money made worldwide in every country added together comes from the U.S. We're significant, like 4% of the world's population, 20% of the income. If you look at global trade, one of every $3 spent on the world stage is the United States dollar being spent. Even if you add the EU and China together, they still don't beat us. So the fact that we're that much of a demand to do business with puts us extremely higher in a point of leverage. And what you see with countries like Vietnam, they're being incentivized to not only buy more U.S. goods, same with the EU, buy more U.S. goods, and start tariffing China. I do not think that after Ukraine fucked the EU over by giving them all these energy imports and then invading a country they were in negotiations with to bring into the EU. I do not think they're going to turn around and say, well, let's just start buying shit from China now, who's doing the same shit with Taiwan and funding Russia to go into the EU. So I think we're seeing on a larger scale, we're going to see Trump having Canada, Mexico, and the EU all put up tariffs against the Chinese, and we're going to see them moving away from their economy in the next decade.
I mean, first of all, we
Okay,
brought
I
this
think
up
that-
earlier. The U.S. is literally at risk of losing our world reserve currency status because people don't want our dollars anymore. They are so uncertain about what the fuck is happening. You're shaking
People
your
are
head, but
divesting from America
And
at
yet,
rates we have not
Nonfon,
seen.
they're all coming to the table to make the deal with us. You can talk.
that's
Okay,
not
can you
that's
give
not
us
what
a
I'm.
list of countries
These
that have come to the
investors
table?
are not
Okay.
the people selling bonds are not the ones.
Reality.
We have about 30 countries named by now, yes. I can give you
Okay,
a
can
large
you
list.
send me that?
Yeah, I understand,
and
but
the
I'm
deals
talking
that have
about
been made?
mostly private
Well, no
investors
deals
who are
have been
selling
finalized
No
their.
deals have
over
been made yet?
negotiations.
I'm talking about-
On their governments.
Oh, I'm sorry. They didn't
Yeah, I
fucking
understand because I'm not
negotiate with
talking about
75
governments. I'm
countries
primarily talking about
overnight.
the private investors who are concerned about the U.S. economy and therefore are choosing to divest from it, and that's good. That's hurting our currency. People are currently shifting away from using our currency. And the U.S. is a bigger economic power than China, and we probably engage in more trade overall. I don't disagree with that. But like I said, a lot of goods that we rely on from China are just super hard to remove from our supply chain because we rely on them from electronics
I
that
don't
really can
believe
only be
that's
made
true.
there, and China can pretty
The
easily
only-
buy the
the only
soybeans that
thing
they
that
import
China
from
has right now on
from
us
Brazil.
is the-
And look, if China was doing so poorly, I don't think they would be doing things like they are, like the export tax on rare earth minerals. They are literally basically forcing us to implement a tariff on them by putting an export tax on certain goods going to the U.S. that they know we won't do super well without. And look, Trump has said that he wants China to call him, right? And China's the one not calling him. So I don't think they're too concerned over losing any potential trade war. And I do think, a lot of our allies
you're really wrong
are not
on
going to
that.
trust
China
us
reached
anymore
out to the
to sign any
administration
deal because we just blew up the last deal we had. I'm pretty we had a trade surplus with Australia, and we had an agreement with Australia. We had an agreement with a lot of countries through the GATT agreements, where we had low tariffs because of the GATT agreements, and Trump blew all those up. I don't know why they would think we
If
have
only
any
there was
credibility.
like a partnership of non-Chinese Pacific nations that we could join, maybe a trans-Pacific partnership or something that we could join. What happened? Like, why can't we put something like that together? I don't
There's
know.
no
Yeah.
Why would we
TPP.
want to
No.
put something
Well,
like
there
that
were-
together?
In 2016, there were two candidates that were against it. One of them negotiated, and then she turned around and denounced it. So who was going to usher that in if both candidates were
Who
against it?
withdrew us from the trans-Pacific partnership?
Oh, either
was it?
president that won in
Who
2016.
was it?
Both of them were
Can
running.
you name them? Who
Then they
was
were
it that
both
actually
bad,
took
but
us
like
down?
that still leaves Trump being bad.
I don't think
Oh,
it's bad. I think
It was Trump, gang. Trump removed
Yeah.
us from the Trans-Pacific
everyone-
Partnership.
anyone
Just
who's-
FYI.
No,
Oh.
yeah, I
Yeah.
get where you're going, but I don't have a problem with that. Again, not a globalist.
It's
Keep
fine. I
using
don't
the
know.
word
You keep
globalist, and I'm not sure what you mean by the word globalist.
Jew.
But this might be a different conversation depending on what you mean by globalist.
No,
Look, I don't know.
no,
You
Tyler.
said earlier you
No,
want like
no.
as much free trade as possible, right? You just want it to be fair or whatever. Like that to me
Sorry.
implies globalist or whatever.
Yeah, free
Couldn't
trade is
help myself.
globalist, baby.
I'm sorry. Are you asking me a question? Or are you just
Yes,
I
I'm
wanna know
asking
what
what do
you
you
mean
mean by
by
globalist?
What do
It's
you
hard
call
to
it,
tell
globalist?
when you're just rumbling. Anyway, yeah. So
Can you guys not hear me? Is
globalist.
this not on? Hello?
To me, globalist means that you want to participate in this economy as we're the big kid on the block. We're the police of the world. We're the whatever you want to call it, and we don't need to be that guy. I would actually prefer if we no longer provided security on the high seas for all nations and let them provide their own. I would prefer that we do not provide security for any other country except the United States, including South Korea, including Germany, and including, well, basically, I mean, Tyler and I had this whole discussion at one point. So yeah, I'm not a globalist
Well,
in,
Grid,
that,
let me-
in that metric. Also, I believe that sure, we can trade with other countries, but that trade needs to be private, not government interference. No government interference.
Well, hold on, Grid. Let me ask you a question.
man.
Maybe I'm confused because I mean I'm definitely not an isolationist. But
First,
I know.
first of all,
I'm a little confused.
trade is
about
mostly
how-
private.
I'm not
How-
an
how-
isolationist.
how-
I'm
let's
a
Second of all,
interventionist.
Let's just say
Tariffs are government
you know,
intervention
I
in
don't know.
trade.
There was a country, specifically a Chinese country, that is building atolls outside, like military bases in the the Pacific Ocean, and they're deciding that we're no longer going to let the U.S. trade with the Philippines or Taiwan, and we're going to let any ships in the areas we control. Now, do you want us to go in there and force our way in and be able to trade with those countries? Because the Philippines, it's in the Philippines territorial waters. They should be able to take out China, right, by your own metric. Is that what you're kind of saying, or should we be able to enforce our American interests with using?
I think that I go back to the earliest days of the country. There was a situation, you may have heard of it, the Barbary Pirates.
Yes.
Hmm.
Marine Corps fight song and all. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the halls
You know what we
of
did there?
Montezuma.
But,
We
yeah,
killed
you
all those
got it.
motherfuckers. And that's what happens. But did we become the
So
police
you
of the
want
world at that point?
intervention?
Did we become the police of the world at that point? Did we provide security for other nations on the high seas? It can be argued that we made it easier for the East India Trading Company and the British to trade, but
Well,
But
the
really,
answer is
we
no,
protected
Greg.
our
'Cause
own
historically, guess who was doing that then? Because we were at war, or we were not friendly with the UK or the Britain.
we weren't actually friendly with the UK. You're right.
Yeah, and obviously, and so they're the ones who were providing the freedom of trade. And
Okay, let me ask you.
look,
Look, we
Go
have
ahead.
about $2 trillion. $2 trillion a year that runs through the Taiwan Strait. Okay, $2 trillion of trade. A lot of that goes to us. If China says, "Nah, we're gonna shut that shit down," should we go in and open it up? With our
Is it
bombs,
their
our
territorial
planes,
waters?
Or if the
boats.
Houthis
Well,
are attacking
beautiful.
ships in the Middle East,
I mean, you can answer this question simply, Wick. I mean, I don't think you're that dense.
I'm
Maybe
asking
wrong.
you what you think we should do.
Is it their territorial waters?
It's the Taiwan Strait.
Okay, then no. And if we want, and if we need to, we can send warships along with our cruise ships or passenger ships or trade ships or whatever, and blow them out of the water.
So yes.
You want to
So
intervene in that situation. Got it.
Well, that's not intervention. That's protection.
You're a
No,
last
that's
case
intervention.
scenario interventionist.
Well, hold on. If I'm walking down the street and someone tries to rob me,
I will intervene and stop them.
The security guard I've hired beats
Intervenes
their
and
ass.
stops them.
That's
Your government issued security guard, all right? Yeah.
Wow,
No, I have no
he's rich enough. He'll just pay for it,
I'll
All
give
right.
money to Israel to defend.
All right. Anyway, moving on. Okay. So yeah, I mean, not a fan of. So you're not a fan of us going in there and protecting our trade between countries once it reaches their territorial waters. So you would just say that if the Philippines can't defend it, then I guess we don't
Well, I
trade
would
with the
say that
Philippines
if
no more.
the Philippine boats can't get out of Philippine waters, then that's our problem, and they can either.
What
deal
about
with
our
it.
boats in and out of the Philippines?
Well, our boats are our boats. You don't touch our boats.
Okay,
You don't touch our boats.
not the boats.
What if an American
I was
company wants
waiting for
the
him to say it so
Philippines?
that I could do
Who's
that.
gonna
Hold on. What if an American
waiting
company?
for that.
What if an American company says, "Hey, we have a deal with the Philippines, okay, where they're going to ship us using their boats. We've agreed to use their supply chain. They're using Philippine boats to send us our goods, right? It's a huge company, and a lot of companies get whatever resource from the Philippines. And then China says, we're going to stop those
Bananas.
Philippine boats from going outside, and we're going to shut them
private
down.
industry?
Yes, it's a private industry.
Okay, then why did they contract for that?
Because for whatever reason it was cheaper to get the parts or the supplies or whatever they're buying from the Philippines, whatever they want. Maybe it's mail order brides. I don't know, right? Whatever they're buying for the Philippines, okay? The company wants it, they're ordering it, right? And the Philippines are shipping them in, okay? China comes in and stops that from happening.
No,
Should
Rick.
the American
No,
government
Rick.
free their ships?
I don't believe that our government owes you security in a foreign country, Wick.
Let me take a
I
crack
think
at that.
they
Okay,
do.
well-
I think that if an American citizen is abducted and accosted by a foreign government, that we should come in with guns, bombs, planes, and rescue our American citizens.
Okay, let me take a crack at that.
Oh yeah, so that's good. We should take out Hamas and get our American guy back.
No,
I agree. I know.
Yes.
I know Wick was like that. All right. I'm going to switch topics now to a different economic topic. Yeah, because this is going down a foreign policy rabbit hole, which is related to this to some degree. But speaking of foreign policy, Trump has implemented the new gold card, $5 million. He's claiming they made $5 billion off of it so far. Are we fans of this system of economic influx? The logic being these are rich people that are going to invest in the U.S. economy now that they're here. Are we
Are we
fans
talking
of
about
this?
the visas that he's
How much
selling?
is that?
Yeah, the $5 million.
Yeah.
Okay. If you
Gold
want
So he
to
raised the
I don't
price.
think-
Yeah,
Yeah.
He raised
I don't
the
believe he
price.
actually
Yeah.
raised that much. I'm
Passport.
pretty sure
I
that
don't
part
think
is
we
not
should
true.
have people
but
in this country.
You don't think we should have people in the country?
at all.
No people.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's probably a good idea. It's probably a good idea generally to have,
Probably
you
not
know,
wrong. I mean,
visas.
I don't actually have an argument against that.
Yeah, let's go down the nihilist route. All right.
Was based
Okay, sorry, that was just a dumb comment. You were actually going on something.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Nonfon. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
he's
it is-
not as weird.
It's probably a good idea to, you know, to sell some amount of visas every year to investors who will, you know, come in and invest and bring jobs and make their country better and whatever. But I mean, I don't know. My understanding is we already had a program to do that, and I think I'm almost certain Trump is lying about the $5 billion number, because I believe I think it's like if you invest $500,000 or create like 1,000 jobs or something, you can apply for like a visa in the U.S. I'm pretty sure. I think that's what it was.
It is correct.
So right now, if you want to get a passport, I don't know how much you guys internationally travel, but if you want to get a passport, you can actually pay extra to get it. Get the process accelerated. This is basically that to another degree.
You can get it 24 hours now.
Yeah. This is that
No,
for another degree.
Great.
So one
Big
of the
fan.
so if you want to immigrate here from another country, especially like China or somewhere like, you know, somewhere we're not like super friendly with, there's a couple of different ways to do that, and one of them, as Nonfon has said, is through investment. And I believe that was set at $500,000 and you have to. I mean, you have to do the background checks and all that. I mean, it's not like you just you write a check and you walk in. I mean, you still have to be vetted, but that is one of the. But people who couldn't get citizenship from a country like China or like I don't know wherever, but China is the one country I know that does it the most, and Canada did the same thing. Except Canada, it was just $500,000 invested. I think the U.S. and I'd have to read the code again, but I think the U.S. it had to be invested in a business and you had to create jobs. And in Canada, for example, it just had to be 500 grand. And so there were people buying houses. They would just go in and say, "We'll give you $500,000 for this house."
Well, I guess
Even if it
the
was
reason
only worth 200
the reason I'm bringing this up with the economy is there seems to be some dissent within at least MAGA between those in like Elon Musk's camp who are like let's continue brain draining other countries and bringing people in here, and people on the further right who are like we don't want anybody here. These are American jobs. I mean, I would say this falls in the brain drain from other countries category. If you're taking people that are rich enough to invest and bring them in here, I mean, does this sound like a sound economic strategy, or is it Trump? Like, is Trump breaking from what his base is? Do we like it?
This sounds like a gimmick, honestly, and I have no strong thoughts. If he wants to do this gimmick, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trump's actual proposal here is a gimmick, which is right. But I do think the general idea, which again we kind of already do, of like selling visas if you invest here is a good strategy. And I do think that we should let in more high skilled people. And I mean, more low skill people as well. But I basically think high skill people should have like an uncapped amount of entry that we let in.
So y'all have been arguing from a globalist standpoint for a lot of this, right? Like going forward. I guess we're going to change it a little bit more because it doesn't seem like this is just kind of circling the drain. I think.
When I say globalist, can I define what I mean just real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Quick.
Yeah,
right. When I say globalist, I don't mean world police. Right? I mean people who protect our interests overseas. And we do have interests overseas. American companies want to invest in foreign businesses for a variety of reasons and get foreign resources for a variety of reasons. And if an American investment firm wants to do that and we have interests there, I think that the American military should protect our interests. And I think that it should protect foreign. I think it should protect our interests in foreign places as well.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, literally,
so when we have trade ships that are sailing the seven seas, I think it's perfectly.
So when the Chinese soldiers arrive to protect Chinese interests in America, you're going to be cool with that?
When Chinese interests and American interests come into conflict, which interests do you want to win out?
Well, I would prefer there not to be any Chinese things here in the United States. See, that's my thing, right? Like I don't believe in that. You believe in that. You think that's cool. You think, and I don't believe that. I don't believe that Americans in
I think Americans should have the choice.
Need to be defended by American troops invading that country. You dumb fuck.
So actually, hold on. Thorn actually kind of touched on something just now with that comment, and that I really want to go to. Right? He says, "What if they make the best products?" So there's a lot of people that talk. Right? If you see in the U.S., I know we were not going to debate IP. We're not doing that, whether or not it's good or bad. But China has a different set of rules regarding IP than what we do. Right? Once you reach like $5 million, like per year rate capital, like gains or whatever, like in your product sales, China will just blatantly rip that off and just start making cheaper copies, and there's nothing the US can do. What do we suggest when like we have powers that seem to be playing by a different set of rules? Because it doesn't seem like y'all are a fan of tariffs on the left, and even some of us here on the right. What do we do in situations like this, or like in the EU, where like it took Trump his first term, he increased it by 10,000 tons on beef, but like they have all these extra restrictions. Like they just slapped us with poultry restrictions. Well, what do we do with like groups that seem like they're willing to protect their people, but they won't like help us, right? Like where it's like they're looking at them. Like what do we do in these situations if not tariffs?
Well, there's a wealth of options, and obviously it's context dependent. Look, there are certain situations where tariffs are the right answer, right? There are certain situations where tariffs are the thing that we should do. However, the way that this administration is utilizing tariffs makes it clear that they don't know what they're doing. They're incompetent at this. They are incompetent at the economic global trade, and what they're trying to do simply is not working. The reason he backed off the tariffs initially is because he saw what was happening to the dollar and to the 10-year Treasury bond yields and how they were spiking and how that was absolutely not in the interest. And Trump said this was the reason that he backed off in his speech the very next day.
Not
A lot of
exactly.
people tried to post hoc rationalize
He said he
it,
was
but
watching the
that's
bond
what Trump
market.
exactly what he said.
Not
He said he was
exactly.
watching
is
the
what he
bond
said.
market. He said he was watching the
He-
bond market, and people
as
were
a-
getting
he
a
did
little
not say
yippee.
He said people were getting yippy because of the bond market, and he canceled it because of their
As I
them.
said,
But he
I
also
just-
said 75 nations came to him, and it takes time to make those deals as well in the same speech. So there were more than one reason.
Yeah, they did ask for more time. They wanted more time. to make
I'm
deals.
just repeating why the reason that Trump gave. But
But you only
regardless,
repeated
I mean,
half
answer
hold
your
on,
question.
just real
Dick.
quick,
Come
like
on,
it-
don't be a
to
dick.
answer your
Be a
question,
dick,
right?
man. Come
to
on.
answer Gibbs' question of what should we do, we have a whole host of options because I do want to bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. I think that's a good idea, right? Subsidies are a very good option, right? And there are others, and I'm sure Nonfon could elaborate on them. But this idea that we only have one tool in our box is just not true. But yeah, that's what I have to say.
What are they?
I mean,
Wait
look.
here.
So
Subsidies are
one, I think the
one,
first, I
right?
think the first thing to mention is
Subsidies.
obviously if you believe
Okay.
tariffs are generally like economically beneficial or at least not like super economically harmful. Well, in any case where you see an unfair trading practice, you're going to say, well, obviously we should do a tariff here because it hurts them and also doesn't hurt us especially bad. But
just
if
a
you're
tool in the
if you have our
toolbox, Nonfon.
so if you have sort of our on tariffs where they are economically harmful, you're going to be a lot more hesitant as to when an unfair trading practice justifies the use of tariffs. And again, like we do have other tools like the WTO, does have mechanisms by which you can try to get other countries to change their trading policies. Now, to an extent, China doesn't fully listen to them, but also, I mean, it's not like the U.S. doesn't engage in unfair trading practices. Like we subsidize, we
So
subsidize
China's a
our.
massive power, right? Like,
What's the
what do
next
you
step?
do? Well, hold on. Yeah, so hold on. Like, okay, let's just use that scenario. Right?
Well-
You said that you just admitted they don't follow through, right? With everything, right? And so, like, explain to me. Like, I get your argument for like where these countries that will play ball, we should do the X, Y, Z, right? But so explain to me what our prescription is to do like fight an adversarial power that has so much economic ability all over the world. Like, what is our options?
So what?
then if they're not
So
gonna
what
play
would you
by the
say?
world rules?
What do you think Mexico should do? Because we have free trade with Mexico and we subsidize our farmers, and our farmers are able to outcompete all the Mexican farmers. And we're obviously a global economic hegemon too.
Well, I'll tell you what I would say is tough titties, because always my theory is what's best for Papa. So like, yeah, that's what I'm asking. How do we what's best for Papa China whenever they're cheating?
You tell
That's the
Mexico,
world rules.
sorry,
What do
we're
you-
trying to compete with
What-
Mexico.
like,
We're
no,
trying to compete
no.
with China.
Now, if I was a Mexican farmer in Nonfon, I'd be like, well, Mexico, y'all need to do something about this. And so I guess I'm asking you, what would you tell the Mexican farmers is your plan?
So
I mean,
actually,
again, so it would depend on basically how harmful I believe the unfair trading practice is, because there are, the U.S. consumer and U.S. companies do benefit from the cheaper prices because China subsidizes their products, right? Obviously, U.S. producers are hurt, but U.S. consumers probably win out more than producers lose. Unfair trading practices. If we agree there is a problem, I'm going to sound like a libertarian. Tyler, you're going to love this.
Sure.
Government intervention is not always, the correct solution to the problem, and it can end up making
Never the solution.
things worse.
Trickle
Like it just
down,
seems,
Nonfon, baby.
well, if you believe it's not, this is absolutely not trickle down. But look, I mean, I just
Saying
don't.
never the solution, but then you're like tariffs are good actually.
Hold on, I want to hear
I
Nonfon
said
finish.
tariffs are
Just
the
not- I'll just-
option at this moment.
Somebody-
because
somebody get-
we've gotten ourselves
not-
into
Somebody
this
get ready to
predicament.
click. Somebody get ready to click Fabian Fawn. I'm ready for it.
I'm
Go ahead,
ready.
finish out.
Well, I mean, no, I said the libertarians will say this all the time. Like, even if there is a problem, it doesn't always mean like government intervention is the best solution to that problem. It can end up making things worse. And there are probably plenty of cases where tariffing a country because we believe they're engaging in unfair trading practices would actually make things worse. And like Wick is right, if we have a problem with China subsidizing their solar panels, well, why don't we just subsidize our solar panels, right? And like Biden did this, and we have evidence that solar panel subsidies like generally increase the production of solar panels. And it seems like we also have evidence that tariffs a lot of times make the companies that they're trying to protect very inefficient and like reliant on this protection from the government. We have evidence that tariffs reduce labor productivity sometimes, at least within the industry that they are placed in. And subsidies don't tend to have the same effects, it seems like.
And also tariffs lead to lack of innovation in the home market too. That's like a really big
Yeah.
thing. Like you saw that especially with like the EVs. So sorry, that's just like my jump in bit.
Real quick, Nonfon kind of just
Okay, so I
debunked Wick's
sick
point
him,
right there.
Yeah,
In a sense.
get
Well,
rid of
Nonfon,
that American.
Nonfon, you just debunked Wick's point of subsidies, because as soon as we put subsidies on China to match their unfair practices, We are now using.
Do you know what
practices.
subsidies are?
Yes,
We
we're now
already
using
use unfair
Why
trade.
would
Hold
we
on,
put
let me get
subsidies
my
on
whole
China?
sentence out. You just said the best way. Gibbs asked you, how would you, if China's ignoring our trade policies and ignoring what we're telling them, how would you work on decoupling from China? The only example you said was subsidies.
You know what subsidies are?
Yes,
You
I'm
don't
aware
put
what
them on
subsidies are.
China.
I'm
What you do
understanding.
is you
I get
subsidize.
this.
That's what you just said.
I
What
said
you
if
do-
we put subsidies on U.S. jobs, U.S.
That's not what you
firms
said.
to compete with China because of China is what I said. Because of China, if we put subsidies on U.S. firms, we are now undercutting all of our trade practices with every other country around us. Because now, as Nonfon said, we're subsidizing our farmers, so Mexican farmers can't compete with us on the world stage. So instead of actually doing something about it, we're allowing China to continue their unfair practices, making our practices more unfair as well to meet them, and then undercutting trade with everybody else. This leading to the current problem we actually already have. So do you have another solution?
Well, what do you?
maybe?
Well, hold on. What would a
Well, hold
tariff do in
on,
that
before
case?
we-
A tariff
before we go
would just.
Before we get into that,
Before we go any
get into
further,
that,
hold on, stop. Before we go any further, a subsidy, as defined by Oxford Language Dictionary, is a sum of money granted by the government or a public body to assist an industry or business so that the price for commodity or service remain low or competitive. All right, go ahead. Bye.
Yeah, so generally
Look,
also,
so-
what you see with subsidies, the cheapest way to get a subsidy out in the U.S. is you find the biggest, most profitable country with the lowest company with the lowest profit margin. So we're giving these subsidies to massive companies like Coca-Cola, who are using it to make their products cheaper that are unhealthy. And then what you do is piss off leftists because they're wondering why our government's giving billions of dollars in subsidies to these massive billion-dollar companies. So
No, I mean
leftists,
there
I don't
are
care.
plenty
I
there are
don't
plenty
think
of
we are, but-
subsidies. There are plenty of subsidies we get the farmers that
understand.
I don't like, especially like on corn. I don't think those are justifiable subsidies for
Oh, yeah.
farmers most of the time. But look, like what would a tariff do in the
I was
case of
just
Chinese
subsidized
unfair trading
by my
practices? It's
chat
not like
for
China is not going to
100,000
stop
dong,
subsidizing their
dong,
solar
a
panels.
lot of dong.
I just
China
wanna know-
China is not going to stop subsidizing their solar panels if we tariff their
right.
solar panels. They might even tariff them more to subsidize them more to negate the effect of the tariff. So like
You're
you're
right.
not stopping China from engaging in unfair trading practices,
You're
but
right.
I'm
They're
not
gonna
convinced.
give
Your goal-
people drive
If
to-
your
in order to
goal,
subsidize, oversubsidize.
if your goal
Well-
is to increase local, in other words, American manufacturing, I think subsidizing those things
There are so many
is a
watching.
better
Thank you all for being
solution
here. Give
than
a like,
tariffing
give a like, drop a
from
like.
other
Everyone hit the like
countries.
button.
And yes,
Hit the
there are
subscribe button. I appreciate all of you.
if I may, there are negative repercussions like ripple effects for some subsidies. But if our goal, and I think it should be, this is where I would agree perhaps with the other side, is that we have a manufacturing deficit in America, and we do need to turn that around, especially when it comes to things like boat manufacturing, ship manufacturing, things like that, because we are coming into a much more hostile world. I think that Trump's alienating our allies and withdrawing from the world stage is going to increase the chance of conflict with a global power in the next 10 years. And we do need to really hop on board and get a large investment into American manufacturing, American jobs, American steel production, American ship production, American weapons production, and things like that. And subsidies allow us to do so in a much more clear and a much more specific way, targeted way than tariffs would. That's my.
Why not have
That's why
tax
I'm
breaks? instead?
asking for subsidies.
Why not
Tax-
do tax breaks instead?
Tax breaks are another thing
They-
that we can do. Yes.
I mean, that is
It's another
essentially a
tool.
type of subsidy. Like, the Chip and Science Act, like,
I mean,
offered
but
tax credits for companies who.
No. If you give someone a subsidy, you are taking money from taxpayers and giving it to a company. If you
Yeah,
simply
so,
don't collect as
that's-
much tax,
So what do you
you're
think a
doing
tax
you're
credit
allowing
is? A
that
tax credit.
company to pay more people. Just for example, I paid $250,000 in taxes last year. I could have hired 4 people with that money. The government does not spend my money anywhere nearly as well as I do, obviously, because I make money, and the government loses money. And so, therefore, by everyone's rationalization here today, you should all be giving me your fucking money, and I should be making it work for you.
Look, like,
wouldn't
and
invest
in
it's
things that
like
are
accounting
wise.
whether the government reduces the amount of taxes you pay by $1,000 or simply gives you $1,000 but doesn't reduce the amount of taxes you pay. Like, that's the same thing in effect. Obviously, like, I'm pretty sure if you ask ChatGPT this or Grok this, they will consider, tax credits a form of subsidy. I'm pretty sure that's a reasonable thing.
Well,
like,
hold on, let me ask this. Let me ask this, Grid. You said you don't like taxes, right? I mean, I also fucking hate taxes. Many people would argue that a tariff is equivalent to a tax. Do you agree with that?
Well, it is
or do you-
by definition a tax.
And it annoys the fuck out of me that we get taxed by every damn country on our goods, and we don't tax theirs.
Grid,
Okay,
you
fair enough.
acknowledge, Grid, please. How much do you think Japan's average tariff rate on us is, please?
I believe we were somewhere around 8% before all this started.
No, we were at like 1.64%. How much do you think it is in Korea?
Hold on. But you're looking across all of the products. What was the tariff
actually-
rate?
Yeah,
on
that's why I'm
American
looking at
cars
the
going
average
into-
tariff rate.
Hold on.
Well, hold on. Yeah, Nonfon, why
What was
would
the-
you do?
what
Why?
was the
Hold
tax
on.
rate on American cars going into Japan?
Why I understand it could be the case that they tariff.
an actual American product.
Well,
I don't give a shit about lipstick. I care about
What do you
Okay,
think we
so
tariff-
you just
Hold on,
arbitrarily
that's
choose
easy.
what to care. Like,
Hold on, that's a good point that Grid's making, and I've seen this argued a lot on a
No.
lot of.
No.
Hold on, Wick.
No.
Okay, well you can. I'll let you rebut it because I think Wick's not Wick. I think Grid's actually making touches on something. Is that say like in cars, right? In Japan, yeah, if they're across the board, it's what'd you say, 1.8%? Yeah, that's low. I agree. But if it's cars, which is something that specifically we're trying to compete in that market, and they have an 80 to 120% tariff, yeah, that's a lot different than if they have a 1 point or like a negative tariff. I don't know. There's probably not. I don't think there's a way to do a negative tariff. But if there was a negative tariff on fucking rice, because they don't need American rice, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just picking something here. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's gonna offset it,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Well, yeah, but this is
So let me tell you why this is retarded.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry
Tell me
for
why.
using the hard R here, but I
all
think
right.
it's
I'll allow
warranted. If Trump had made a tariff on cars specifically, we might have a
Did.
conversation. We could have something to talk
Did.
about, but that's
He
not
did.
what Trump
He
did.
fucking did, Wick.
Trump
He
put
did.
a
This just shows you
blanket
don't know what you're talking about.
tariff
Stop
on all these
I'm gonna
countries.
talk-
Grid,
I
there's a
don't want you
10% tariff on
talking
Japan
more
right now,
until
is
you
there
understand
not?
What you're talking about?
5 different
freeze?
policies. That was the first one.
Did he freeze or did he just like?
No, he's waiting for you to say what you are going to say. 'cause
Okay,
you
yeah.
came in very hot.
No, Wick, you're fucking wrong. He literally said that if you buy an American car, you don't pay taxes on it. You buy a car made in a foreign country, you pay taxes on it.
If I want to buy a manga from Japan, is there a tariff on that right now?
I believe so. I
Manga?
believe there's
Yeah.
a 10%
There
tariff
is
on all
tariff.
products
There
in
are
Japan.
taxes
There
on
might be
it.
some
10%.
exemptions.
If I
but-
wanted to buy rice from Japan right now, is there a tariff on that? There is. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. It's the blanket tariffs. So don't try to like get me in a gotcha when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, sir.
I'm not trying to get you, but you literally said if he put it on cars specifically,
just
and
cars.
he did. He made a specific tax on cars
No,
higher than everything else.
Grid, that's
prior
not
to any
only
of the
to
tariffs.
that's not a reciprocal
also,
tariff
yeah,
though.
it
The
was
the
right.
auto part tariff is
Leaving that
not
out, thank you.
reciprocal to other countries. The auto parts tariff is just 25% on all auto parts imported to the country. That's not
We're
a
not
that's
talking
not a
auto parts,
reciprocal.
We're talking about actual cars.
That's what Trump did. Trump has a tariff on all auto parts. I'm assuming that's
Yeah.
what you're referring to.
The car.
No, I'm talking about actually buying a car. You buy a U.S. made car, put in place a policy where if you buy a car made in America, that means a Toyota Tundra truck made in Texas. I think they're made in Texas still. Then you don't pay taxes on it because it supports American workers. But if you buy,
Yeah, that's true, buddy.
whatever I don't even know what they fucking still make in Japan. Honda Civics, maybe, I don't know. But if you buy something that
89 Honda.
it's something, if you buy something that floats across the ocean, you pay taxes on it.
Look, so number
That is a
one,
targeted tax. That's
I don't
exactly
believe number one.
what I said.
Number one, I don't believe that tax credit is in place yet. I think Congress actually has to pass it. Number two, you only get that if you itemize your taxes, and like the bottom 50% of taxpayers just like don't itemize their taxes. I forget if it's literally most of the bottom 50%, but It's only rich people are going to get that tax credit, buddy. But regardless, again, you said that like you're upset about Japan tariffing our cars or whatever. Trump, one, as Wick said, put a 10% tariff on everything in Japan, and two, put auto tariffs on all cars entering the country and car parts entering the country. This isn't like specifically a reciprocal tariff. This is not a reciprocal tariff to Japan's cars. It's a reciprocal tariff across the board.
You understand that he was elected for a universal 10% tariff.
Yeah, wow. Yep. I never considered that one, man.
And he implemented via executive order in January.
Yep.
He did that. And he was elected on doing a 10% across the board tariff. Period.
That's great. That doesn't make it good. Can you provide an argument that that's good?
I didn't say it's good or bad.
So then why are you bringing up that he was elected to?
Hold on. If the American people elected the next president to, for example, steal dumbass caps, okay, would that be a good thing? I don't think you would like that.
So hold on.
They would take your caps away. It would be terrible.
That 10% tariff across the board.
We just have Americans make caps. That's how that works.
That 10% tariff across the board is probably the worst of all the tariffs.
It's probably unconstitutional, but
it's probably the worst of all the tariffs because Trump is telling other nations drop yours to us for zero. We're going to put up this 10% tariff as a comparative advantage adjuster that's in the long term going to eventually. It's essentially using DEI in the form of tariffs. You guys tariffed us for 30 years and made all these imbalances in our economy. This comparative comparative adjuster is going to, over time, revert those changes to our economy. That's the idea behind that. It's from Peter Navarro specifically.
Peter Navarro, yeah, my favorite trade economist who understands a lot.
Barra, right, all the time.
Real quick,
right? That one story.
Comparative advantage.
I'm going to use RR again. Retarded.
Bro, I mean, have you ever heard Biden talk? He said he marched with civil rights people. I don't want to hear about lying.
Like, comparative advantage is not something to adjust for. Comparative advantage is something to take advantage of. I don't know why the fuck we would have a comparative advantage adjustment. That's the most retarded thing I've heard, man.
Because it's not the snapshot fallacy. When you do something for 30 years in a specific policy, snapshot fallacy. When you do something for 30 years in a specific way, it changes the infrastructure of your country to adapt around that more globalized free trade. What this would do is a small tariff to over time push.
Take a drink for the what about.
Congratulations, you understand, Tyler. You understand gains from specialization. Yes, countries gain from specializing in products.
I literally started this by saying it's the weakest tariff and the easiest one to attack and the stupidest one. I'm just telling you.
I understand, but you call it a comparative advantage adjustment, which is like an
Navarro called it. I know you don't get it, but it's feasible.
We know what Navarro called it. We know why it's laughable, right? Because Navarro's a laughable person. I know more about economics than Navarro.
I want to just real quick.
Who's your preferred economist?
I don't have one, but I know it's not Navarro.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so real quick,
I would pick Nonfon over Navarro.
Let me jump in with my point real quick here. So I would say that the largest factor we see for our adversarial nations, and I'm going to keep hammering this point because I think it's the most important and the reason behind this trade war. The biggest thing we see is a sudden burst of money going to these nations. So Russia got a pipeline. Trump put a sanction on it, would not let them have the Nord Stream 2. When Biden came in, one of the negotiations he was having to keep them from going into Ukraine was allowing them to have the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Their economy spiked almost a 10% growth because of that pipeline. And we saw that be one of the major factors in why they had enough money to have the war. And also another major factor in why we couldn't fully sanction and tariff their energy exports, because it would hurt the EU just as much as it hurt Russia. So the fact that they were coupled together undermined the fight back against Russia. We cannot fully put the boot on Russia's neck right now because they're so coupled to Europe in terms of energy exports. With Iran, we see something similar. Trump releases $10 billion in tariffs. Biden releases the same $10 billion and $6 billion more. I think they got $26 billion in like a year and a half. We can see about a fourth of that going to terrorism against Israel. October 7th happens. We have a 7-front war against Israel from 7 different Israeli-funded or Iranian-funded militia groups in 7 different nations, all coordinating, attacking together, ceasefiring together, and everything when they're not supposed to even be talking. Third example, China. 30 years of quasi-capitalist, quasi-communist rule. Their economy goes through the roof. They have tariffs against us the whole time. We see manufacturing fucking tripping over itself to get over there. About 10 years ago, Xi Jinping comes in. Their economy is booming. They're number 2. They start stealing our IPs. They start expanding their nation and looking at Taiwan, Hong Kong, and other places. they start funding all of our geopolitical rivals.
Didn't
Hold on,
China
real quick.
reduce all its tariffs when Xi Jinping came in? That's why their economy boomed. I'm pretty sure.
It's part of
I
it.
I
could be
think
wrong.
they've had tariffs on us the whole time.
Yeah, but they
that's
okay, I'm
not
talking
that's
about-
obviously not causal for their growth though. It's probably not the
It's
causal
a part
relationship
of
there.
it.
But
It's a
I
part of
mean,
the
it
growth of
probably, if anything,
manufacturing,
it probably reduces their growth. But look, so I mean, he said a few things. One, it's gonna, a lot of this stuff, the national security things, like it's gonna come down again to if you believe tariffs are like not that economically harmful or even economically beneficial, you're gonna be a lot more willing to implement them. In cases of national security, if you believe that tariffs are economically harmful and not necessarily even preferable to subsidies, you're going to be a lot more hesitant as to when you want to implement tariffs on these countries. And again, you just have, Tyler, respectfully, you have no good evidence that manufacturing was shipped over to China because they have cheaper workers or whatever.
Everyone agrees
like we
with
have
this.
a lot
There was
more.
an economist
That's
on Bill Maher last
absolutely
week
that's
that's
absolutely
arguing
not
your
true. That's
whole
absolutely
thing.
not true. If you were familiar with the literature, if you were familiar, I can provide you with a lot of studies that say productivity increases were the main driver behind the decline in manufacturing employment in the U.S. And again, it seems like
He's going to ask you for those studies later.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I agree with that.
Hold on.
You don't agree with that, okay?
Let Nonfon finish, then you can rebut him. Go ahead.
I've already had this exact discussion last week.
Yeah, look, it's just like the evidence all points to productivity increases being probably the main driver behind manufacturing, the decline of manufacturing employment in the U.S. And it also seems like, some of it had to do with unions and the Rust Belt kind of, having a lot of demands that companies didn't want to meet, and therefore they reduced the amount of investment. That's probably part of it as well.
What were those demands again?
But look,
All right, go ahead.
I don't know, probably increased pay and
Union
things like that.
pay,
but
climate regulation, taxation from the United States government.
That's great.
Those are the demands.
That's great. So we have very good reasons to believe that just structurally, manufacturing employment is always going to decline with per capita income increases. That's why every single country, as they develop, follows the same inverted U-shaped path where manufacturing employment grows at first, it peaks, and then falls down. Even countries like Germany and South Korea, which have strong manufacturing sectors, that's not one factor.
Keep going back to this of the aggregate. We've already had this exact
it just seems like if you keep saying like manufacturing jobs are like being shipped over to China, and I provide evidence that
shifts manufacturing to other countries. Yes.
Okay.
No, that's not at all what we're talking.
Hold on. I'm gonna let Nonfon. I'm gonna give you like 1 minute or like 30 seconds here to wrap it up real quick, and then I'm gonna let you rebut it. Then we're gonna open it back up. Go ahead. Don't interrupt it. Let him.
There's just not really good evidence that trade is responsible for the decline in manufacturing share of employment. If that were to, align the trend line from 1960 to 1980 manufacturing employment, if you extrapolate that out, it predicts the manufacturing share of employment like almost exactly right now, with no knowledge that we would join NAFTA, that China would join the WTO, and we start trading with all these countries. That indicates it just wasn't trade; it was productivity increases.
All right. Rebut him quickly, and then we'll let it open.
Yeah, I understand that.
Like 1 minute max.
He's talking about one single factor. I understand that there's enough evidence to prove that tariffing and raising taxes cause the markets to change. A tariff is a tax. It causes the market to change. If you tariff a country, you see we've seen it with the Trump tariffs on China shifting manufacturing to Vietnam. We've seen with the USMCA renegotiations, China is investing in Mexico to shift their manufacturing there because they want to get around the tariff. It's fucking proven in common sense. And we see the real world actions of it in real time. I don't know how it can be denied.
All right. Rest y'all. Thoughts? Y'all look like y'all have some deep ones.
Man, look, someone's been tariffing my thoughts right now. I have no real opinion on the when it comes to offshoring of manufacturing jobs to China. I will say that we've been losing manufacturing jobs in America since the 70s, and that's largely due to automation. When NAFTA was put into place, it had, I would argue, not any appreciable effect on the loss of manufacturing jobs. Those were mostly offshored, again, due to the wage differences, as well as, again, just we're losing automation jobs simply because our economy was changing and moving to a more service-oriented economy, and has been for decades. So, I mean, look, again, I would agree that we do need to revitalize our manufacturing sector. I'm with you. But I think that the way that Trump is going about doing that is retarded.
Nonfon, can I ask you why?
Go ahead, Grid. I'm going to let Grid go, and then Nonfon respond, and then I'm going to have another question because we're getting. I want one more thing covered. Before
we need to talk about the Federal Reserve as well, but Grid ask.
Why?
Okay, yeah, we might as well do that next then. Go ahead, Grid first.
Yeah, why is it that every automotive manufacturer that sells cars here now makes cars here?
I don't know. Repeat
What?
that. Every car manufacturer that sells cars here now makes cars here.
Yeah.
I don't know, a
With the
number.
exception of Porsche and Ferrari. Of course.
There's a number of factors behind it. I don't see how this is particularly relevant, but
You don't understand the factors behind it?
I mean, I'm sure
Here are the tariffs.
so. There's gain.
Do you
So
think
there's
that
gains.
tariffs did that?
I know tariffs did that.
Okay.
So what again? Like, my point is that trade is not responsible.
No,
is
your
largely
point
not
was is that we're
responsible
losing
for the decline.
manufacturing because of automation, but that's not true because we brought
That's
manufacturing
absolutely
into
true.
the United States.
No, I recognize that obviously if you tariff, car production, there's going to be more car production in the United States. It's just that car production is a lot more automated than it used to be. So it's just not going to provide many jobs. That's my point. Again, like I have actual studies I could cite you. You just kind of have this feeling that, you feel like that manufacturing went down because of
feel like
trade. But
any-
again, economists
I mean,
who
the
actually know what they're
numbers
talking
trade.
about.
Look, I really like you. You're a good kid. But here's the thing.
True.
Yes, okay, line workers did decrease, but maintenance workers increased because those machines have to be maintained. You know how long?
yeah.
I mean, and just just off the top of my head, because I have a background, and I'm picking on this industry because I have a background in the industry, and I kind of understand it a little better than I would making chopsticks or forks. I just don't understand that industry. I understand automotive industry, and I understand what it takes. But we're going to apply it to any industry that you're claiming to be automated. Those machines can run about 16 hours a day, and they need 8 hours of maintenance. That means that there have to be people there to do the maintenance. We have not yet successfully gotten machines that can do the maintenance for the people. The people also the machines have to have operators standing there. So yes, you're right, we did lose manufacturing jobs, but we picked up jobs that you don't have to hold your hand up, Gibbs. You're the moderator for Christ's sake.
Don't worry. Listen, I'm perfectly well that I'm the moderator. You keep going. Don't worry. I'll speak up. This is how I think, Papa.
I'm waiting for him to get to his point.
Yeah.
Don't worry about me. This is not my
point
first
was
time.
perfectly made.
Okay,
Well, look, I mean, when you say these things like,
here's what's gonna
factory, I
here's what's gonna
understand.
happen.
The reason that you see the
your point was made.
manufacturing jobs in Germany specifically, since you used that example, decline is because of the unions that went there. Do you know that Germany
Absolutely not.
Germany shipped their auto manufacturing to Finland of all places to avoid the unions. And when the unions went there, they started making cars elsewhere.
Number one. Okay.
Hold on. I'm gonna let you go ahead, Thorn. I'm gonna let Thorn go. Then I'm gonna let you rebut. Then I'm gonna let you move it over to the Fed topic afterwards, since you brought that up. But go ahead, Thorn, rebut, and then we'll let Nonfon go. Go ahead.
Oh, my point was just that Finland's really pretty, so that's.
Thank you. I appreciate the deep input there. Go ahead, Nonfon.
You're
Yeah,
my
I
favorite
mean,
person on this panel, Thorn.
look,
And ironically, he's got a degree in I can't even.
Economics, yeah.
Thank you.
Look, I understand that, like, I agree with you. Automation usually reduces jobs in some sectors, like it will reduce jobs in manufacturing sectors, but it might increase jobs in other sectors because of people need to maintain these machines. The internet automated things, but it also needs people to write the software for all this automation things. I agree, automation can be like a net job increase. Which, hey, by the way, guess what? Trade is just a type of technology that lets you indirectly produce the things that we import by first producing things to export and then trading for them. But look, the reason, again, if that was the reason Germany offshored their production, we wouldn't see this trend across every single developed country. There are good structural reasons behind it. I'll give you just one. It's the simplest one. There's something called the Baumol effect. There's something called the Baumol effect. So basically, typically,
I understand that.
it increase the productivity. Do you understand what the Baumol effect is? Please describe to me what it is.
I asked you a question. You didn't answer it.
What was your question? Sorry.
I said, are those countries socialist?
Socialist over there.
They're socialists in Germany.
They are.
I don't agree with that. They might be more social democratic than us.
You don't think you don't think Germany's a socialist country?
I do not think Germany is a socialist.
What's this have to do with the price of tea in China, brother?
Because the unions and taxes, brother.
Look. I mean, I'm trying to explain to you what is probably a bigger factor than these unions and taxes. So look, the Baumol effect. The Baumol effect states that a general.
You're trying to say that it's because all of a sudden the more advanced we get, the more automation we get, the less jobs there are in manufacturing.
Yes.
I'm telling you that's not necessarily the case.
So
And
that's
people
just the
offshore
case.
The people offshore those jobs not because they don't want to pay people to make cars down the street anymore, but because their government makes it impossible to do so. This is how stupid do you have to be to not understand this?
Okay, great. So
Again,
can I
we
just describe
have
one
been
structural
you
trend?
stupid
Job,
argument. Yay.
but they have been overwhelmingly right. The jobs we have lost because of automation are overwhelmingly more than any jobs we have gained due to like the maintenance of those
Prove
automation.
that out.
What do you mean?
Well, that's just not particularly relevant because again, my point is just that this decline in manufacturing employment, not decline in manufacturing output, mind you, because when we get more productive, we output more
said
things.
Jobs. You said
Yeah, I
jobs.
said
You
jobs,
said
I
jobs
know.
as a whole, right?
Yes.
Like you didn't say
Jobs
well,
no.
the factory's still there because the maintenance the guys that actually use the press brake 10 hours a day, those guys are gone because we got an automated press brake, but we got 3 guys now that has to take care of that machine. So you literally missed the entire point, and you made a point of saying something that's not true and not accurate.
Everything I said has been way more accurate than everything you said. I can guarantee that. I have actual evidence for the claims that I am making. But look, I agree. I agree that automation can have offsetting effects to the.
I know that you agree. I understand that you agree.
Yeah. Okay. So can I please?
I agree, but
Can I? Well, yeah. Because I agree, but I agree that automation can have.
Econ stuff is cool, but it's not that. But you're literally just reading stuff out of a book that I've lived.
True, buddy.
Let me just move this. All right, we only got a few minutes left for somebody wants to leave. And I know you want to talk about the Fed. Why don't you bring up the Fed and what you want to talk about there? Yeah, let's go to the Fed because I know Tyler's got a hard out in 8 minutes, but we're ending at a hard 30 mark here at the
hard R.
Yeah, 30 mark at the longest for the rest of us. Go ahead with the Fed thing.
Yeah, I think Donald Trump the reports seem to suggest that he's been privately talking about firing Jerome Powell. In his first term, he publicly threatened Jerome Powell. I think he's said even recently that he thinks Jerome Powell would leave if he asked him to. And I think the president should, I can grant unitary executive theory and say the president has the power to fire the Fed chair. That does not make it good to fire the Fed chair because you disagree from a monetary policy. So the question I want to ask, and I want a clear answer, would you condemn Trump's action, maybe not condemn Trump holistically, but would you condemn the action of him firing Jerome Powell because he disagrees with him on monetary policy?
Who are you asking?
Both of you.
It's a general
the conservatives.
topic.
Go ahead, Tyler, since you're
I believe you meant.
I guess I'm a conservative now.
Yeah, there you go. You're the conservative now. Go ahead.
I don't think he's very conservative, but
I condemn Trump daily. Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Go ahead.
So you would, if Trump fired Jerome Powell, you would be against that?
If he
For monetary policy reasons.
So if he has, again, he fired Comey because Comey lied to him. I thought it was kind of petty, but that was where I condemned it. It was petty and unwarranted, but he had the authority to do it. It didn't fuck up the investigation. They got Mueller in there and shit. So I think that was fine. Ultimately, it would just depend on the context. Where if he just fucking outright fires him and said that's because I can and kiss my ass, everybody, then absolutely, yeah, I think he should bring that dude back from the MS-13 guy back from El Salvador as well. So I'll condemn that shit easy.
Grid, do you stand with Jerome Powell?
Grid.
I'm sorry. Which part am I supposed to be mad about with Jerome Powell?
If Trump fires him because Trump wants
I understand the question. Which part should I be mad about?
The fact that Trump interfered with monetary policy.
I don't care. It honestly doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I think it's within his power. If he wants to do it, he can do it. He doesn't even need to. Honestly, I don't even know that he needs to articulate a reason for doing so.
Okay, so you would obviously agree that not everything within the president's power to do is good, right?
Blue fucking shirt today.
Great. You would obviously agree that not everything that is within the president's power to do is good, right?
If it's not good, then why would it be within his power? That's
What?
That's an insane.
Okay, buddy. Okay, buddy.
Hold on.
Just because it can nuke the whole entire world,
Everything
it doesn't
within
mean
the
that it's not
presidential
bad, you know?
power
What if
is
the president
good,
nukes
gang.
Chicago?
And if the president can do it, apparently
And then they
it's
should
good to
nuke
do.
specifically Gibbs' house.
I don't live in Chicago, thank God.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, but Grid, I don't know that I agree with that. Everything the president can do is good. Well, all right, I'll use Doge as an example.
Well, I can't say that it's good or bad.
So
But you're literally asking me, is it good if he has his power? if it wasn't good, then he wouldn't have the power by definition.
I mean,
hold on,
he
hold on,
doesn't
hold on,
actually
hold
have
on,
the
hold
power
on.
right
I-
now.
I-
But
I got this,
Let me have
lefties.
an
Let me fight with
Yeah,
it.
you fight
I'm
first.
I'm a conservative, and I'm from Texas. We don't like big government here. I'm not a libertarian though. I know
I hate
people
big
think,
government.
yeah, we don't like it. So Elon and he big old guy. He comes in, talks to Trump. They set up Doge. Now I initially have said I am hesitant about Doge because hey, it's not necessarily what they do with it; it's what the people after them do with it. Because just because they have the power, it doesn't mean it's good. If you get a president that's like the antithesis to everything USA, then like when Biden was in there, because Biden had the powers, everything he was doing was good. I think no. I would think you would think no. Why would you say that just because the president, the power is good?
That wasn't the
I'm
question.
Okay, well
The
maybe
question
explain.
was, is
logic
it
here.
good that he has that power to do so?
no, my
See, if he
question was
doesn't have the
specifically if
power,
he
then- If he has
exercised.
the power, then it must be able. It must be at least.
No,
good.
Grid, I said I
Right?
granted
If
full-on
not-
unitary
if not-
executive
if not,
theory.
then remove the power.
No, Grid, so I said, so to be clear, I don't think Trump actually does legally have this power, but I said
He
I'll
doesn't.
grant you unitary
Hold
executive
on,
theory.
thought
I
the
will
first thing
grant
you
you
said
that.
was you
No,
My
he
question
was posing
was-
the question that way to kind of get into like a conversation about that.
Oh, okay, I got you.
My question was specifically, let's say Trump exercised the power that I'm granting, that he has the legal right to fire Jerome Powell, only because he disagreed with Jerome Powell's monetary policy decisions. Would you condemn that action?
Hold on. So if I have the power to fire somebody and I disagree with their actions and I fire them, why would I disagree with that?
Because the
you wouldn't-
president probably should not have control over monetary policy. Do you agree with that?
The president should not have direct control over monetary policy.
Aren't you
But then
effectively...
again, I don't think the Fed in and of itself should exist. So I
Oh,
think you've
okay.
got me in a bit of a conundrum here.
So there shouldn't
Well,
be a
let's-
central
let's-
bank
let's-
of the United
let's-
States.
Let's pause that. We'll come back to that in a second. Tyler, you need an outro. Go ahead, give your outro.
I'll need an outro after, by the way, as well.
Sure, and then we can get it, and that's fine. Go ahead.
I'm supposed to get ready for my show, but fuck it.
Well,
I
that's
don't
fine.
care.
We'll just end it there then. Go ahead. We'll all do outros. Give closing. That's fine. I thought I had one more thing we could go into, but that's okay. We've had a good panel. Go ahead. Start us off, Tyler, with your outro. We'll just go around the bottom and come back up.
Average debate enjoyer. We're going over to right now my Discord to review debates. It's kind of an EFAP style. Pause whenever somebody has an idea. All sorts of shit. If you want to check that out, I'm going to be streaming that, and then we're doing poker night tonight, 11 to 1. That one's got an open invite for streamers. If you want, just send me a DM. I'll get you in.
All right. Thank you so much, Nonfon.
I'm Nonfon. I stream on Twitch and Kick on Nonfon420 and YouTube at Nonfon. You should all check out my YouTube channel and watch all the edited debates that I have arguing with all these people about whether tariffs are good or bad and about Trump's tax cuts and all that jazz. Trump's attacks on the Federal Reserve's independence is bad. Trump's tariffs are bad. We didn't talk about the budget or anything, but I think most of the cuts that conservatives, MAGA people want to make to welfare is bad. Yeah.
Those were that immigration were the next two things I want to hit, but that's okay. Here, you are also just doing something, and I was watching it a little bit last night. Why don't you tell them about that too before we let you go?
Oh yeah, I'm actually right after this. I'm gonna go edit that. But I did a panel with Sarah the Raging Tomato, where it was an open panel, and a bunch of people came on to yell at me about why tariffs are good, and I epically owned every single one of them.
Get they asses, bro.
It was I don't know if I agree with him on all the points, but he was put on a decent show. Thorn, go ahead.
I'm twitch.tv/the Thorn Horn. I like jumping in with like little quick bits and stuff. I wasn't as prepared. This was kind of like 1 hour before.
It was.
Kind of got pulled in. But I enjoyed kind of talking with you guys, listening to different points. I had no idea about like the protests and the big like stock dip in China. That was something that just was not even on my radar. So that was interesting to actually learn about that and stuff. So really appreciate being able to be on here and talk with you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming, especially last minute. I had to replace so many people for this panel, all last minute in the last 48 hours, and you came through in the clutch. But two people that we didn't have to replace. They've been reliable from day one. Wick is one of them. Go ahead, Wick.
Yeah, when I say I do something, I try my best to do it. First of all, Testicle Johnson for $2 to Thorn W. So there you go, Thorn. And that's for Testicle Johnson there. keep giving me your money, and we'll get to super chats after I leave these gentlemen. Before I leave entirely for the night, but I'm Wick. You can find me at Wick TV on all platforms, at least Kick, Twitch, and YouTube. I do debates. I host them, and sometimes every once in a while I'll jump in. It's fun. Next week we got some great stuff coming up. Okay, I'm going on Sarah the Raging Tomato show as well on Monday, teaming up with Soy Pill to debate. I don't know, some cucks about gender roles. It should be fun. I don't actually know who they are. I should probably find out their names. I just don't care enough. On Wednesday, we're going to have a talk about, is the American empire over? Is America's downfall here? And we're going to have some great guests for that. We're going to have Big Papa Buckaroo. We're going to have Visora. We're going to have New York Shade. We're going to have maybe Mooncake. It should be fun. I might have other stuff coming up next week. We'll find out. But tune in, check me out. And Gibbs, thank you for hosting.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, and the answer to the question, I'll go ahead and tell you no. It's no. Now, tell you now it's no, because God damn it, the new American empire is rising, baby. And on to the other reliable one, Grid.
Yeah, so I'm Grid One Motorsports. I have the channel An Unreasonable Man on YouTube. I used to stream to Twitch, but Twitch is boring, so I don't do that anymore. You can find me there. I will be back live again in just right around an hour. Tonight I have a guest, Dina, something or the other, that makes movies. I don't know, kind of famous. I don't know how famous she is or isn't, but she's going to be a cool guest because she's awesome. I do guests, I do interviews, I do political commentary and satire, and I occasionally debate. I have a debate show on Saturday night where you can win money. Hey, Nonfon, I missed you last week. I thought you were. I saw you in the chat, and then you dipped.
I know. I didn't go up. I should have, but I honestly forget what happened. I could have.
Cash.
And, I don't know. I think I was editing stuff. I think I woke up like super late that day. I don't know. I think I just didn't do it, unfortunately. But
I'm sure there will be more opportunities for y'all to yell at each other.
Yeah, every Saturday night, I fired up around somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30 whenever I feel like it, and we go until we have one man standing, and it's cool. It's 5-minute blood sport debating. You do not get you get 1 minute to state your position, 5 minutes in the ring, and then you're done. No long-winded speeches except this one. Anyway, come check it out, man. It'd be great.
Yeah, thanks all everybody for being here. I appreciate y'all, especially you two staying in through it while we had to get some new people in. And thanks for y'all being here, and y'all have a good rest of y'all's night. I'll let y'all go. For the rest of us, we're going to be on, me and Thorn will be on a show here in about, an hour and a half. We're going to be on Modi 201's comedy dating show. It's going to be really funny. If you've never seen us, we usually dress up as characters and do wild shit. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Look, something very interesting happened. I think maybe I'm missing the point. I think I might be missing his point if I'm charitable, but I'm not going to miss that's the point he was making.
Yeah.
So, first of all, what was the debate broadly about? Was it about Trump or was it about tariffs?
It was about Trump's economy. So we talked about tariffs. We talked about immigration a little bit. We talked about the Federal Reserve for like the last 10 minutes. So.
Yeah. So, for one, just as a meta-critique, and I know I meta-critique you a lot and it's tiring, but, whatever.
Valid.
I think you need to be more of a dick, so if someone interrupts you, be like, shut up, I'm speaking, thank you. Or something like that, because it's just impossible that you just, make a completely brilliant point and they interrupt you. So it's like, bro, I cited all the evidence, you just have vibes, you cited nothing, you don't care about it, and then they interrupt you and say, well, shut up, shut the fuck up, sit in your chair, cuck, and let me finish. I'm your girlfriend, bitch. That's what you should say. You should be like that. Either way.
I was more aggressive last night on my open panel thing, but yeah, I wasn't super aggressive.
Okay. Well, you should be. They're aggressive with you, so you should match energy. If someone interrupts me when I'm making a brilliant point, killing them, then I'm gonna keep going. Thank you. Either way, that's besides the point. So you were making the point about manufacturing, hey, I cited to you other studies about why we lose manufacturing jobs. It's not because of trade. And it's not because of lower wages in China. It's because of productivity differences and the standards of unions. And then he made the point, well, what did the unions ask for? Oh, it's higher pay. Then see, it's higher pay. It's So if I'm charitable, maybe the point he was making is that unions ask for higher pay, which means that the wages in the United States will be higher than China has still lower wages, so they move to China for the lower wages, which proves his point.
Yeah.
Not convinced that's the point he was making. I think it's far more likely that the point he was making is just that his entire, or wasn't consciously making, is that his entire worldview is just motivated by corporations bad, whatever. So if you can admit that corporations did something because they don't want to pay workers, that proves his point, right? Like, oh, corporation bad. So his view on trade and globalization.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so. I mean, I think you watched the other conversation I had with him where he's like, "Oh, you're not really a real leftist
Trickle
because
down.
you." Yeah, I know. Trickle down. It's
Trickle
like,
down.
dog. I just
Yeah.
care. I just care about what's good for Americans, and free trade is just good for Americans. Like, I'm sorry, brother. But it's true.
Yeah.
If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.